Great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 3rd, 2026 regular monthly meeting of the Tiverton Planning Board. We will start with roll call. Alan Myers.
Here.
Stu Hardy.
Here.
Cheryl Valentine.
Here.
Janice Gomes.
Here.
Dick Taylor.
Here.
Rosemary Eva.
Here.
I'm Bill Gerlach. Who else is down there? Adam Raposa. Here we go. Also joining us this evening, we have Todd Romano, our Assistant Solicitor and Planning Board Counsel. We have Chris Spencer, our new full-time town planner. We'll come back to him in just a moment. We have Ashley Sweet, our former interim administrative officer and consulting planner from Weston and Sampson. We also have Sue Mara, consulting planner from Weston and Sampson, who's here to help us with one of the items on our agenda tonight. And we have Ed Rotella, our land use clerk. Before we go on, I just want to again acknowledge Mr. Spencer joining us here for the first time. We're glad that you're here. Say a few words.
Sure. Thanks. It's great to be back here. It's been a while, and been a lot of changes here in Tiverton, I see, and a lot of pressure, a lot of development pressure, a lot of work that this board is doing every day. And my role is going to be really to help guide the town, listen to the town, and help guide any of the development that happens. Try to create better development standards and guidelines so we can get, when there is development, the kind of development that is adding value to the towns. But just really looking forward to working with all of you, and thank you for all of the service that you guys do every day.
Thank you. All right, we're going to dive right in here. First up on the agenda, BCP Properties LLC, Major Land Development Preliminary Plan Review Comprehensive Permit application. This is Vital at Tiverton Commons. We are continuing the discussions with this applicant as part of the preliminary plan review that we have had the last couple of months. We're going to continue here today. And Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening. Again, for the record, John Mancini on behalf of the owner and the applicant, BCP Properties, with respect to its proposal for preliminary plan approval regarding a comprehensive permit for the property located on 0 Sousa Road, Assessor's Plat 301, Lot 220, and Plat 110, Lot 102. So we're essentially picking up from where we when we last met, where you heard some testimony with regards to our architect, and I submitted some additional documentations. Not documents that I intend to rely on this evening, but just documents that I wanted the board to have, and I'll kind of clarify where we're kind of going with that. So most important of which, I'll start with the fact that I submitted the PAR Engineering's report dated January 12th, 2026. This is the report that was requested of the board at master plan. Excuse me. It was a condition of master plan, which was to have a evaluation performed with regards to water availability. And specifically, the board had requested that we prepare a hydraulic evaluation. That has now been completed. It's been completed in conjunction with the water districts, and they have provided us a report based upon their hydraulic model, and they've made certain recommendations. The report was done by PAR Engineering, as I've indicated, who also is the same engineer that has prepared a hydraulic model for the water districts. And that was important to us because we wanted to be certain that we were all kind of on the same sheet of music, if you will. And that report has now been submitted to you. You have an opportunity to review it, and at the next hearing, I will have PAR Engineering be presented before you to go through the report and address any questions or concerns that you have. We feel very good about the report. The report does show that there is a pathway to water, as we have been saying. There are some recommendations and suggestions made in that report, and we'll explore that, and we'll talk about that further as we go through at the next meeting. But I wanted that to be in your hands in sufficient time for you to review it and be prepared for a discussion with that at our next meeting.
Can I interrupt for one?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
One of the conditions of setting the time clock now is submission of that report. Do you feel as though you've satisfied all of the conditions? Now start the time clock?
I believe we have, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to the board about, if the board feels that this report, I wanted the board to have the report ahead of time to make sure that it felt that it was what it wanted and what it needed. And if there's any comments or additions that they want to the report, we can certainly have PAR do that. I think the report is substantial enough, it's significant, it addresses the concern at master plan, and the clock can start to begin to run at this point. But again, as I said at the onset, our goal is to make sure that you have all the information that you need. I'm not concerned about the time clock. I'm more concerned about making sure that you have what you need to review to get us to where we need to be. And that's what we've been doing from the beginning.
I appreciate that. I just want to keep us all moving with the same cadence forward so we all know what the time clocks are in the event it is an issue.
The time clock, it did say it would start, but there was language in there about it being accepted. It just, because I just got it yesterday and kind of went through it, but, I'm sure it's fine, but can
So John,
we do like an official sort of, okay, we read it and we accepted it and not the date?
That's fine. Yeah,
can we have
that's
10 days to
absolutely.
review?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I expected. I mean, I wasn't expecting tonight for you to make a ruling on it, but for you to review and determine if it was sufficient, if it was complete or incomplete.
That's right. And like I said, I did have a chance to read it, but if you wanted to bring in, we put the engineers and the hydraulic experts that we have on staff, and I wanted them to at least take it for certifying it as, yes, this is exactly.
Is 10 days sufficient to do that?
It is more than sufficient, yeah.
So
Fine
if
with
you give
us.
us 10 days, we'll have a response to you?
So can we clarify 10 calendar days or 10 business days?
10 calendar days is fine.
Yeah, I don't know, we'll take that.
I know how precious each day
So
is.
sometimes between 24 hours and 10 days is yeah.
So February 14.
Okay, that's fine.
We will have an answer to you by February 14, and whenever you get that answer is when the time clock will start.
Right, and if it's insufficient or deficient, then we'll have 14 days to respond to it.
We'll follow the statutory process.
Correct, yeah.
Understood? Yes? Everyone understand what we're doing here? Great.
We're not gonna talk about that tonight because I just gave you. So we're gonna talk about it at the next meeting after everyone has had the opportunity to review, and Mr. Mancini and the applicant will walk it through. I believe PAR is gonna be here.
PAR is going to be here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to present it.
I haven't even seen it in
No.
my email.
I was about 5 minutes, it's already please that Cleveland, or environment.
Okay. We'll deal with it at the next meeting.
I have a concern.
Okay, sure.
I have a concern. We just received this yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know if 10 days is sufficient. I feel like we should have a presentation by Par Engineering, and then, that would be sufficient time after that to review it.
It's not 10 days to review it, it's just 10 days to
Accept it.
certify it as this is what they have handed us, what they were supposed to, and then that kicks off the period where
It's a checklist item.
does the, yeah.
So it's just handed to us. It's not accepted as this is okay at this point.
It's accepted as this is what we asked for, but then the town and the technical review will have the chance to review it.
Just like a traffic study, they've submitted one. Whether it's sufficient to meet your needs is a different issue, but it checks the checklist,
I just have a lot of questions.
as you should.
Yeah, again, just so we're clear for the record, so what the applicant has done here is they've submitted the report without the anticipation that that report would be reviewed tonight, but rather be submitted prior to tonight with the explanation that it is our hope that it can be fully discussed at the next meeting in March, which would give you 30 days to review it. At that meeting, we intend to have PAR Engineering here to go through it and answer any questions or concerns that you have. It'll also give you the opportunity, if you need to bring in anyone from the water district to further describe or elaborate on it, you can also do that. And as the solicitor indicated, it's a checklist item, so we don't expect the clock to tick now. We're giving 10 days for the administrative officer to review it, determine whether it's sufficient, If it's insufficient, then we'll have 14 days to provide whatever deficiency there are to it. But essentially, we've now handed you one of the checklist items. So, I can address any issues, but only as a superficial level. I can't really get into it. The other item that I have 3 witnesses for tonight to go through what we've already submitted. One is to have a discussion about the population school-age children projections. That was a report that was submitted by Joe Lombardo, and he's here tonight to testify to that. I had Todd Brighton from Bryant Associates. He's here tonight to talk to you about the traffic report, which was submitted. And then we have Molly Titus from Dupree Engineering, who's here to answer any questions that you may have about the site plan and the engineering that's been submitted to date. I know that there are some questions that maybe the board has or maybe members of the public have, but they're available to discuss that as well. Part of the additional information that we submitted at the request that the board had at our last meeting, if you recall, we had a discussion with regards to the height of three buildings. There are 3 building types on this project. One is the clubhouse building, and so we gave you the elevations with regards to the clubhouse building. Second was the 3-story building, and we gave you the elevations with respect to the 3-story building. And then there was a question and some confusion with regards to the height of the 4-story building. And so we've given you now certification of the actual height, and that is, I think, in excess of what we had originally had requested in our variance. So we will have to modify our variance request. I think we were asking for 50 or 55 feet, but the confirmation is that the height of the larger building, which is the 4-story building, is actually comes in at 60 feet. So it's 60 feet, 10 inches and 3/4. And that's also laid out in the plans. I don't have the architect tonight because the architect is coming from out of state and honestly didn't want to be stuck around in case of a snowstorm that was supposedly to happen on Sunday or not happen on Sunday. But I've given you those plans, and those plans incorporate not only the elevations, but they also address the site distances that the board had discussed and requested that we provide to you several different angles of view from Sousa Road, from Route 24, and one other vantage point. So we've provided that to you in the paperwork that I submitted the other day. In addition to that is also some landscaping plans, also a result of the discussion that we had at the last meeting about what we could do and some plantings and some delineations of different species. And that's also part of the package. That will also be discussed at the March meeting, so you'll have an opportunity to review that at the March meeting. So again, any information that I've given you, I've only given you so you have it. I don't expect you to, it's not part of what I'm presenting tonight, but it's part of what will be presented 30 days from now. And that's essentially the architect's package. Everything else has now been in the record and is part of what has submitted and part of what we rely on. So without any questions, what I'm going to do is ask that the board allow me to call Mr. Lombardo to testify as to his report.
Please.
Mr. Lombardo, your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to this board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that this is your solemn affirmation?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Pleasure to be here in Tiverton this evening. By the way, this is a beautiful building. I've not been in here before. And congratulations on finding here. It's a wonderful town to work for. I think you'll enjoy it. So I'm here to just go over this report. As the board knows, we previously submitted a report at the master plan stage. Now, this project changed, and it changed basically from the point of view of how the configuration of these buildings in the bedroom count, the different type of units that are going to be in it. And that makes a big difference in the projections that I made originally, and that's why it differs quite a bit from that original report to this report. So I had given the board the methodology and the sources of information, but basically we try to estimate population based on the size and the configurations of the units that are proposed to be built. So there's studio apartments, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom. What changed dramatically from the first report to this one is the count of the 3 bedrooms. And that's what was generating more school-aged children, frankly, based on the original plan versus this plan, where there's only 16 units. So most of the units are studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms. So we have different multipliers based on that configuration. And I have a lot of data in my report from different sources on where we get those numbers. There's been a lot of recent developments as I drive around the state. I participate in getting some of those approved. You can see some being built right now all over both Rhode Island and Connecticut. And these are large-scale multifamily apartment buildings, and they're geared towards a certain demographic of people moving in. And they typically have amenities that favor adults, and there's a big demand for them because, as we know, the housing prices for single-family homes is incredibly high. And so a lot of people are turning to apartments, young professionals, a lot of empty nesters that are selling their homes. They might be a part-time resident now, they might have another residence in a warmer climate. But in any event, these are being built because there's a high demand for them. And we hear about affordability and housing needs all over the country, so we're no different. So in essence, this report reflects the difference in the design that the applicant made. And when you look at the differences, it really boils down to the multipliers that I use for a resident living in the community, what it costs for all municipal services, and what it costs to educate a school-age child in your system based on the net cost after state aid to education is granted to the community. And so those numbers are as follows. The municipal budget, it's a number of $630 per resident. You have a very well-run community. This is a private development, so some of the typical expenses don't apply because it's being maintained on site. But this includes fire, police, public works, and debt service. So that's the big main expenses in your municipal budget. The school-age children, it's a high number. It's $19,500 because that's what it costs to educate in your community, even after state aid. So we use those numbers to multiply based on what I'm estimating for the population. So those numbers in the report, we had a total of 467 people living here, and we had a total of 18 school-age children. So that school-age children number dropped considerably, again, because of the types of units being proposed. So when we look at those expenses and we compare them to what I'm proposing, estimated what would be the revenue being generated of $850,000, this project would actually produce a net positive revenue to the community of about $200,000. That differs completely from what the original report based on the original project. So all the conclusions as far as what I use for multipliers are the same. The differences is I plugged in different types of units to then calculate how many people will live in them and how many people will be school-age children. And there's a lot of data that's in the addendum from a variety of sources. I'm sure you probably had taken some time to look at those. And a lot of it is recent developments in Rhode Island where they're building these kinds of large-scale multifamily buildings. And so we have good data on that. And we have good data on 3-bedroom units, whether they're homes or apartments. So I felt pretty confident that what they're proposing to build there would generate, this type of an estimate for people and school-age children. And I'd be happy to answer questions that you have. I know we went over this once before with you. So the only thing that really changed was the numbers that I plugged in. But that's the methodology, that's the numbers. And as we point out, it's an estimate for you to see what it may or may not look like. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I had some comments and questions, but I won't go for it.
What's the final count of 3-bedroom apartments?
I had 16.
16?
16.
What about 2-bedroom apartments?
Let's get that for you. 2-bedroom is 114. 1-bedroom is 110, and 16 studios. The total is 256.
So basically 126.
Can you say it into the mic?
Can you use your mic and turn it on, please?
So the 1 bedrooms, it's double now, right? Because the studios are also 1 bedroom.
Right.
For argument's sake.
Yeah, the same.
I
Alan,
want to
did
say
you-
something about along what Alan was saying.
Hang on.
I don't think-
I just want to make sure Alan's done with this question and then
Yeah.
go next.
While he's doing his math, can I bring something up? Is that okay, Alan?
Okay.
It just has to do with the difference between the pair hydrology study and this, because they have bedrooms on both of them, and the bedrooms don't add up for how many there are or the grand total.
I think that's noted. I would ask Mr. Mancini to take a look at those numbers. My sense is that there could be
I know when I'm talking about the hydraulics, I didn't have one since then.
No. I think it's a valid point. I think we need to make sure that all of the artifacts for this application are using the same basic foundational data.
Yeah.
So,
That's the original number.
Right, so the hydraulic report's going based upon the original number.
yeah, so they're right.
And that actually adds more bedrooms.
It does.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 32 possible, when you have 3-bedroom apartments, besides the actual, say it's a nuclear family, husband and wife, it's 1 bedroom. We got 2 extra bedrooms. Why would someone spend the extra expense to get a 3-bedroom apartment unless they plan on having children? It's just a normal thing.
Well, my other hat that I wore for 20-some years was a real estate agent in Rhode Island, Connecticut. And in these types of, while I didn't sell a lot of these, but I worked with people that do, the tendency for people that buy those are looking for an exercise room, a home office, a spare room, storage. Because remember, a lot of these units don't come with a lot of extra storage. So they may be moving out of a home and they have a couple of grandchildren that come occasionally that need extra space. They have a room that has exercise equipment in it and a pull-out bed. So those units typically, and there's only 16, but more towards people that are looking for the extra space, not necessarily that they're going to have school-age children in them.
Right.
But the number for school-age children, as you can see, is actually 0.60, so it's 60 per 100 units.
Yeah. But
That's it.
then we got the 2-bedroom apartments, so, and there are a lot of them are low to moderate income. It's starter homes for a lot of younger couples. And so when I look at the numbers, you look at the national standard of 0.5 children per extra bedroom, they throw that out there. I mean, it may be high, maybe low, and the comps is exactly what you're talking about. Have you done comps in Tiverton, such as Bourne Mills and various other low to moderate income housing, to see how many children are actually in the buildings?
We actually, maybe John can comment on this, we actually, through the town, asked for numbers there. And I'll have to admit that while I got the copy that you sent us, I wasn't quite understanding what they were giving us. So there is numbers, I have them here, but I couldn't quite figure out what they said.
So what I'm saying is just using the national standards, that number is at least 4 times that. And even if it's not, I get it, having a spare office and all that. So even if we cut that in half, we're still at more than double those numbers. And really the issue was, and we talked about, was that many kids standing on a state highway waiting for a bus. It's always because it was back to that we can't do sidewalks. So having a group of kids standing on a state highway waiting for a bus every morning, it just makes the numbers go. Even if it's one kid who gets hit by a bus, is it worth it?
The only thing I'll tell you is,
That's my point.
yeah, no, it's a good point, and just from a different point of perspective on this, and I don't know, I know the superintendent potentially was going to come but didn't, but I think we all know that school enrollment has been decreasing steadily in almost every community, Rhode Island, nationally. And what's happening is these units, these types of buildings and these types of housing units are being built because the demographic of the people that are looking for them don't typically have children. Doesn't mean they can't have them, just means there's typically they don't have children or they have less children.
Well, I agree that the age of people in Tiverton is up there, but the fact is,
Right.
this is why we have all these units coming into the town, and I think with all the projects we're seeing, it's close to 1,000 units. That's a lot of kids, especially low and moderate income.
Well, it's a lot of
You're gonna bring a-
units, it's a lot of units, I mean, not necessarily equate to a lot of kids, but it's definitely,
But it's gonna bring a lot of kids, and then we're gonna have a city full of, I think city was a good word for it, but we'll have a town full of a lot of children, and well, the school's only down, what, 100-something students, I mean, because of the age group, and now we got 1,000, close to 1,000 units on the board that we're looking at here every single night, and that's a lot of kids.
So I'm gonna just sort of interject here. So a couple of things on this point. I think a couple of things. So in terms of whether it's one child, 18 children, whatever the number is, there remains the concern about the design, and so far the position of the bus company in town that they will not go into the area to pick up. We've talked about this before. If we're going to talk about architecture at the March meeting, I need to ask that we try and get representation from both the school district and the bus company here for the March meeting, so that we have all stakeholders represented and we can finally get at this point about here, because Alan brings up a super valid point.
Yeah, and if I may on that point, excuse me, it is our goal, it's the applicant, the developer's goal to have the occupants of this building, or these buildings who are going to school, to be picked up on the property, in the property. And we can design it, we have the setup for it, we prefer it, and we're going to work with the bus company and the school department to see if we can coordinate that. So it's our hope that you can have both of them here, and we'll work with you in doing that. Because I think that the issue here is not the number of school-aged children. I mean, whether this report is on the money, or if it's off by double or triple, or if you have 100 children. In my opinion, more the merrier. I mean, it is what it is. But the concern that we have, and the issue that the board has the authority to focus in on, is to ensure that there's proper, there's a proper and safely designed mechanism and vehicle to ensure that children are picked up appropriately, safely, and dropped off safely. And we're going to accommodate that, whether it be by sidewalks if possible, or if a designated pickup, drop off at the building. And we're hoping we can do that at the clubhouse. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the way this is designed, as you have seen, is that clubhouse is the central point. There is a very large boulevard that's been created, in part because of the suggestion by the board. There are two dedicated central large roadways leading in and out, and I think that is more than adequate to address the turnaround for the buses, that they can come off of Sousa Road, come right in front of the clubhouse, pick up, and drive right back out. So that's the goal.
And I just want to acknowledge, I think this board acknowledges the fact that you, Mr. Mancini, representing the applicant, are trying to work to accommodate and address those matters of safety. This is a matter that I'm going to ask staff to make sure we get the school department and the bus company here at the March meeting to talk about this. It's one on one.
Bill, we're confirming that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want Molly to be sworn in, and we can do that after Joe's done. She has more info. She's actually been in contact with the school department. So
Okay.
she can fill us in.
All right, so maybe we table that until
Yeah.
Paula gets
Yeah.
sworn in and take it from there. I do want to acknowledge the data sheet that Mr. Lombardi was talking about. This is, Ed, you had thrown that together, which,
I got it sent to me by the superintendent.
okay, great. So this is data coming from the school department. Don't want to sort of speak for them, represent it, but it was data that was set up in tabular form that allowed us to understand how many school-aged children from grades kindergarten to 12 currently in the school system that reside in both Bourne Mill Apartments and the Sandywood development, right? And that's just some current state data to try and compare apples to apples as much as possible. there are numbers. I mean, I'm not an expert here. I don't know if that's huge or not, but there are numbers. They seem to be in line with the 16 or 18 that
And the only other thing I'll add is, I tried to find out what their unit mix was.
Mhm.
They, like on their website, they indicate they have these types of units, but they don't say how many of each. And I would submit, if we could get that, you could plug my multipliers and see how close it is, just as an
Yeah.
example. But I don't know enough about these. I know of them, but I couldn't find that information out, but maybe we can. And so that when you have this one last piece of information, you could plug it in, it'll probably
Yeah.
tell you how close it is. If half of these are 3-bedroom units, it's gonna be different. If they're all studios in ones, it's gonna be different, so.
The last point I'll raise on this is that I just want to remind folks here that impacts on the school system are unfortunately not the purview of the planning board. This is why we are encouraging cooperation and collaboration with our colleagues over at the school department, so they have full line of sight in terms of the number of developments, the type of developments, the potential impact on their school.
Bill?
Yes,
Yeah, I've got a few.
is your mic on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a hard time getting a lot of these figures to work. But on the first page on the summary there, we kind of changed what we were comparing to. The third paragraph down there where we talk about the town is well below the 10% state mandate at 4.26. And this will increase the LMI units closer to the 10%, rather than telling us what are these units going to take the percentage to? Because we need 3,000 units in order to get to 10.2 from where we are right now.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure I could get that information. It's basically 10% of your current housing stock.
Well, I know that, but
And so if we, 4.26 is, you know,
that's where we are now.
it probably brings you up over 5, but I don't know exactly, but we could give you the number.
Yeah, it doesn't move, the needle doesn't move very fast.
No, 64 is a pretty good needle mover, but
The challenge here, and I'll let Dick get back to his questions, the challenge here that we have all acknowledged for quite some time here is that it's not only the numerator that's increasing, it's the denominator that's increasing. So the goalpost continues to be moved here, which makes it extremely difficult in a world where the target is 25% to really move the needle.
I agree.
That being said, Dick, back to you.
Okay, on page 3, we're talking, and there's several places that talks about, it's been proven that we get five students per 100 units. And that are school age. I don't see how we maintain the 18 or how the 18 means anything. I mean, I arrived in Tiverton 45 years ago with 3 daughters, 2 of them in middle school, 1 in high school. And that has blossomed to the 3 daughters we still have. We've got 7 grandkids. I've got 9 great-grandkids with another one due this summer. I can exceed your 18 on myself.
We're going to have to borrow you from this complex.
You know, it's not that I doubt the low number, but so we have had some of those. We talked on the bottom of the page down there. It can be expected, the project goal, it can be expected to mirror the number of students per household or students per 100 households that have been determined to occur in similar developments. You didn't give us any real good examples of a similar development to justify
Well,
this. It's just a statement.
There's summaries of them. I had
I
a
saw
lot
it.
of data, but it was older, so I didn't put it in this report. But it's been consistent for the last 15 to 20 years that I've been doing these
You know,
reports.
it was like the Charahoe.
Right, that's old data, but it's this, if you
That's
look at
really,
the,
that's really old.
but if you look at the addendum that talks about, that's the next page, that's all related to 3 and 4 unit type buildings, that all of that. There's surveys, the Charahoe, the census data, Rutgers University, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, Vermont. So these are all national home builders. These are all studies that have been done around the country, around New England, of these types of units with 3 and 4 bedrooms, and that's the number.
Yeah.
That number hasn't changed in a very long time, 60 per 100.
Well, I don't know, so a lot of it hasn't, it was 10 years or.
It hasn't changed.
It was a long time ago. I mean, the Richmond Hopkinton was October of 2006, 20
Right.
years ago.
Right.
If anybody thinks that the conditions are the same today,
Well,
as
if
they
anything,
were 20 years ago,
household size has shrunken considerably in the last 30
you
years.
know, I
People
mean,
per household.
it's like traffic. You know, if you use a 10-year-old study, it doesn't do you, those traffic counts don't do you any good. They're page fillers. They make the weight count. And we kind of used the small size, lack of closets, or small closets, no storage space. A lot of places don't have garages or basements. That was used as a plus and a minus. We talked about, well, some developers do these small ones intentionally to keep the kids out.
But it's all again about the demographic of who they're trying to attract, not necessarily who they're trying to keep out. That is their demographic. That's who's interested in renting these places. They don't have kids. They don't need trampolines and kayaks and canoes and bicycles, the children, because they don't have them. So they don't have the space for it. So what could and likely happens if somebody does have a school-age child, when they get to a certain age, they look to move into a single-family home because they can't accommodate it in these types of units. That's why, you know, I saw there's projects being built in Warwick and Cranston. They're 1,400 square feet and they're $2,400 a month. But there's no room for anybody other than 1 or 2 occupants.
You know, but like all of us when we were young, sometimes you were forced to take something that everybody would like to have a larger house with plenty of room. But unfortunately, the thing that brought about the whole LMI housing thing was there's a lack of units. You can't get anything you can afford. My kids couldn't afford to live in Tiverton. Unfortunately, they grew up here and had to leave just because of the cost and lack of housing.
If you have additional,
Of course, I have a ton.
all right, more tabs to get through.
I will skip over what I can.
Okay.
Was the current taxes that are being paid on that property, or that were until you took it over, was that subtracted from the purported revenue that the town was going to gain?
No, that's the total of the project built. So then there's no reason to subtract it. That's whatever you're getting today is,
Well, we're going to lose that amount.
well, no, you're not going to lose
So
it.
what
You're
we're
going
going
to
to
get
gain,
this.
and yours kind of avoided that. Plus, we seem to have a decreasing school attendance, but the school budget keeps going up every year.
It's an
I
So
interesting,
some of that stuff
there's
doesn't
reasons for
work.
that.
I don't want to, that's not our territory.
I understand that.
I'm going to be clear.
Well, but just put it in here, put it in our territory, and gave it to us. We all got a personal copy. So who's gonna own the open space?
So,
We haven't decided on that yet. So there's 1 or 2 avenues, and that's something we can discuss at final plan. One is for us to deed it to the town, either put it in conservation, or secondly, we would maintain it with a conservation easement over it.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the places I couldn't make the math work was based on where we were looking at 5 students per 100 households, has been verified numerous times. But if I took the 256 households and divided it by 100, I got 2.56, which times 5 gave me only 12.8 students.
No, that's not what I did. What I did was I took each type of unit, the one bedrooms, the studios, the ones, the twos, and the threes, used a different multiplier, and then added them together. So that's the total of all of them. It's not an average, it's an actual number for each of those.
Could I just interject while Dick is flipping to the next thing here? I'm thinking about the time. I'm thinking we have to get through traffic study. We have Molly who wants to. So I think from this board's perspective, I would look to our colleagues at the school department to poke holes at numbers. Not necessarily our forte, right? Number one. Number two, our concern is going to be the safety of the students as it relates to the development and how we can ensure that. I just want to make sure we have enough time for traffic and everything else we want to get to. So what I'm going to suggest, though, is that maybe there's value in Mr. Lombardi, you coming back in March, if we're going to have the school department here. They may, I would assume they're going to get a copy of this. They may have their own questions about the numbers and the data based on their expertise.
And we're hoping actually in Boston.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions on this particular study? All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to call Valerie. Asked it.
Mr. Right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to this board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and that this is your solemn affirmation? I do. Thank you, sir. So good evening, everyone. Todd Brayton with Bryant Associates. I've been in front of you before on many occasions, at least one time for this project. So the last time I was here, we were kind of in the process of updating the traffic report, so I think I was talking about the previous study that had been submitted and then the newer data, but now it's going to focus on the traffic study that we had done last summer. So the proposed development as it stands now consists of 256 apartment units, which has been stated already, as well as a 7,700 square foot neighborhood daycare center, as well as a residential community clubhouse. Access will be provided through 2 proposed driveways on Sousa Road, one being a split entrance and exit approximately 1,700 feet west of Fish Road, and also a 2-way driveway approximately 1,600 feet east of Main Road. So our study area for this project consists of Sousa Road, which is an urban line collector, as well as the intersection of Main Road, Sousa Road, and Schooner Drive, which is to the northwest of the site, and Fish Road and Sousa Road, which is to the northeast of the site. So we did collect new traffic data for the development at the intersection of Main Road, Sousa Road, and Schooner Drive. We did counts on Tuesday, June 10th, while school was in session, 2025, sorry. We did those counts from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We also did count on that same day, June 10th, 2025, at the intersection of Fish Road and Sousa Road between 6 and 10 a.m. and 2 and 6 p.m. We've done field reviews of the area, first one being in August 31st, 2023, and again, August 7th, 2025. Looking at things such as stopping sight distance, existing utilities, speed limits, that sort of thing. At the same time that we had the traffic movement counts at the intersections, we also did speed data on Sousa Road on that same day, June 10th, 2025. In terms of the traffic, so that they're based on those speeds, we also got volumes. There's approximately 1,650 vehicles per day on Sousa Road. So then to look at what the impacts would be, we looked at trip duration for the site. using the IT trip direction manual, the 11th edition, using Land Use Code 220 for multifamily housing low-rise, which is for 3-story buildings, and Land Use Code 221 multifamily housing mid-rise for the 4-story buildings. There's a slight difference in those two categories. And also the Land Use Code 565 daycare center for the daycare center. So based on these units, so there's 96 low-rise 3-story building units, 160 units in the 4-story, and then the 7,700 square feet daycare center. That equals, excuse me, a total of, in the AM peak hours, 72 trips would be entering the development, and 125 would be exiting. For the PM peak hour, there would be 117 vehicles entering and 94 exiting. So in terms of looking at the capacity of the intersections, first, the next thing that we did was look at a growth rate to expand the existing traffic volumes that were collected to the year 2030, which is the anticipated build-out date. And we used that data from the Rhode Island statewide planning programs, Rhode Island statewide model update. And based on that, bringing the volumes from 2025 to 2030, that uses approximately 0.25% per year increase. We also looked at several developments in the area that will be adding traffic, including the Casa Reserve, formerly known as Tiverton Heights, which is located on the opposite side of Sousa Road. We also looked at the Seasons Corner Market project at the northeast corner of Main Road and Sousa Road, and also a mixed-use project on Sousa Road adjacent to that Seasons Corner Market. We were informed by the town that the Mount Hope Bay project is fully built out, so we did not have to worry about adding any additional trips for that development. So now, based on this existing data, the traffic counts we did, expanding it to 2030, adding our traffic to it. We did capacity analysis for the 2 intersections I mentioned. We did the counts to either end of Sousa Road, as well as the 2 driveway intersections. We use Highway Capacity Manual, the 7th edition, and also Synchro 12, which is a program that uses that information to come up with delays and level of service for these intersections. We looked at the AM peak hour and PM peak hour being the most critical periods of operations. And then we looked at the future no build, which is 2030. That's without our development. And then future build conditions of 2030, which is our development added on to that. So based on all this information and this analysis, both driveways on Sousa Road would operate at very good level of service B or better for both peak hours. For the intersection of Main Road, Sousa Road, and Schooner Drive, again to the northwest, the level of service will not change from future no build to future build conditions, with the exception of the eastbound approach during the AM peak hour, which would change from level of service C to level of service D.
That's a downgrade, right, Mr. Reagan?
Yes, C to D, yes. And then, the westbound approach during the AM and PM peak hours and the eastbound approach during the PM peak hour would be level service F, no build, and would remain level service F under build conditions. For the intersection of Fish Road and Sousa Road, the level of service would not change, and they would operate at level service C or better for both the AM and PM. So based on, as I mentioned, we got traffic speed data on Sousa Road. So based on that, we used a design speed of 45 miles per hour, which was based on the 43 miles per hour on the eastbound traffic and 45 miles per hour on the westbound traffic. And using AASHTO, the geometric design of region highways, the minimum safe stopping site distance required is 360 feet. So the existing site distances from the west at the proposed east driveways are in excess of that minimum site distance required. The existing site distance on Sousa Road from the east at the east driveway, as well as both directions of the west, is restricted by vegetation that would have to be trimmed in the site distance triangles to provide that adequate site distance that would be needed. So in conclusion, it is our opinion that traffic operations on the surrounding roadways and intersections will experience minimal change with the addition of the traffic generated by the proposed development.
Sousa Road is a state road, correct?
Yes, yes.
Do we ever have the state weigh in on anything, given their impact to their roads? They ever lend an opinion on anything?
I think if you ask them specifically, or to put a big in, express any concerns that they would hope they can respond. I don't
Okay.
think you're gonna get a response just on their own.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you have to initiate that dialogue and ask for their guidance and feedback, and then express any concerns you have or ask any questions to them and ask them to respond accordingly.
If I could interrupt, so this being on the state highway, adding new driveways requires a physical alteration permit with DOT, so that has been submitted, and I know that we have received some initial comments from them.
Okay.
So they will be definitely, they already have done this.
Excuse me, Todd, did you take into consideration the traffic coming on of Schooner?
Yes, that's included, yes.
Can you, I appreciate that it's a physical alteration permit and there is going to be a review, but I'm wondering if the things that are going to be talked about are within their purview for a physical alteration permit, or if this goes kind of above and beyond what they're going to be looking at. I think that I would expect that to be somewhat limited review.
So I guess it depends on which items are you referring to that you would want them to look at. So they obviously would be looking at our traffic report, probably. They'd be looking at the plans that would prepare the debris, especially the driveways. And mostly they're interested in within the state right of way. So they probably would not care so much about how things operate on site,
Right.
but they do care about how things operate on their road.
So that could give you a gauge of what they would be looking at as part of the physical alteration permit, and if you think that there are concerns beyond that, if you want them to look at it, you have to ask. Did you provide the town a copy of the AP submitted to DOT? No.
No, we haven't. We can do that.
I mean, if you guys are having conversations, that could, might be helpful to see what the kind of things are kind of like.
Yeah, so we'll submit a copy or we'll submit it. Yeah.
Does anyone else on the board or staff have questions for Mr. Brayton on the traffic study?
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's about 300 feet between the off-ramp for Fish Road to Sousa Road. You said peak time in and out each time will be about 117 cars. That's a good guesstimate? Is that what you said?
For the total development, it was 117 is actually the number that will be entering the development PM, and that's spread out between both intersections.
Yeah, Main Road and Sousa. You're talking about half of that on each side. Any consideration to the backup of traffic coming off the exit? Because there's nothing there for them to come from except for the highway or Main Road, most likely the highway if they're working. So we got 300 feet with about, say, 60, 70 cars coming from each side, even if we split it in half. Have anybody given any thought to the backup of traffic coming off the Fish Road exit and on Fish Road going on from the other side?
So we did not specifically look at those intersections at Route 24, but I can say that there would not be impact from RQs or from Fish Road at Sousa Road onto those ramps, just because the level of service are really good.
So with the speed, you said the stopping distance was around 300 feet?
360 on Sousa Road.
360 on Sousa Road. What about, did you look at Fish Road too?
We did not look at, because there were no driveways proposed on Fish
Because
Road.
we'll have a lot of traffic coming off the highway, coming off and turning an immediate left, right after the dealership there, going on to Sousa Road. So with the stop rate being 360 feet, and you only got 300 feet from the thing with someone pulling out, it looks like we might have a lot of accidents in that area.
Not necessarily, but so I did not physically measure the site distance, but being familiar with that area, the site distance is not a concern in that area.
Yeah, okay, you're talking about site, just not the traffic. But I thought this was the full traffic.
Yeah, we did not do any analysis at those intersections.
Anyone else? Good. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just have Molly testify, have her sworn in and just.
How are you, Mr. Molly? We swear affirm that the testimony you shall give to this board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That this is your solemn affirmation.
It is.
Thank you.
Good evening. So, I don't have a presentation this evening. It is my understanding you have questions for me, which I will be prepared to answer. But I will offer, I have been, after our last meeting, and we had talked about the school department's unwillingness to come into the development, I went back to the superintendent's name is Christopher Haskins, and I also met with him and Sherry Del Toro, which is the administrator of the bus company. I provided them with turning movements, site plans, school-age children counts, based on the updated units, and they have agreed in writing to come onto the development. I do have an email from him. I actually told him that it would be helpful for me to have an email, something in writing, and then he was originally going to attend this evening. I know you had spoken with him, but I had reached out and requested that he come and confirm that it was everyone's intention to have them come onto the site, and they originally had declined based on their normal operating procedures, but if it was everyone's interest and in the interest of safety, that they would do it.
Great.
They will be here next month.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Good one. Good update.
A question on the engineering or stormwater question from one of the residents. Right here. Yeah, you want it? Sure.
Hang on. 2 seconds. Let me just make sure there's any other questions from the board. Okay, so this is an open public meeting. We'll take brief comments. Questions can come through me to the applicant. You want to, you don't have the podium set up.
Come on here next to Ed.
Use the mic up here.
I think right here.
Well, it's actually for the TV audience.
All right, good evening. My name is Jason Osborne. You good, Ed?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, good. Good evening. My name is Jason Osborne, 1168 Main Road. And I have a question. This is the package that you had submitted in probably November. And it looks like we started to go through some of the engineering drawings. The December meeting, and we didn't have a January meeting, but anyway. And I'm not sure, reviewing the video of the meeting, I'm not sure you got to this particular aspect. But the concern is the stormwater pond complexes. So my question is, I'd like to hear just sort of a very brief discussion on the particular siting and sizing of these. And then I have a follow-up question on the construction details of these ponds. Do you respond to it?
Yes. So within the system, we have designed 2 pond complexes, one at the western end of the site adjacent to the wetlands and one at the eastern end adjacent to the other low points on the site. So we did soil testing across the entire property, probably close to 50 test pits to confirm groundwater table, ledge, and viability for these stormwater systems. So at those 2 lower points adjacent to the wetlands, we had adequate water table, soil suitable for infiltration, and the lack of ledge. So that's how we chose those 2 locations, plus the ability to get the water to those points on the site. Obviously, if there was suitable soils at the high point on the site, it wouldn't very much help us. So topography and ability to infiltrate. The package that you have in your hands from November was submitted to RIDEM for review by the Wetlands Department, also for stormwater compliance. We have been working with them on some comments. The state standard for these system designs is to match peak runoff at design points all around the site, places where the water would leave the property. The standard is rate, not volumes. We met the rates, which is the state standard when we submitted to DEM, and they came back to us and asked that we actually match volumes on this site. So the set of plans that you see has been augmented to add some additional pond area. It's not large, it doesn't impact limited disturbance, it doesn't, increase clearing on the site, but we've altered the style of these ponds to increase infiltration, increase recharge on the site, and meet an increased standard that is not policy, which is volume. So it has belts and suspenders. So.
Okay, yes, my follow-up question is that it looks like on sheet 16 of that particular section, they show some section profiles. And so this is pond section AA. And it looks like from the elevations there, it looks like the height of the berm is somewhere between 25 and 30 feet above grade. Is that correct?
Can you respond to that?
Yes, on the downstream side, yes, we have a large fill berm from the base of the wetland buffer up to create the pond berm. So.
Okay, so that the top of the berm that surrounds that pond, the downward slope is 20 to 30 feet above the grade of the land. Is that correct?
I'm just trying to read these really small numbers. I'm not getting younger. But yes, it looks like the base contour is 182 and the berm contour is 206, so 25 feet.
So that's correct.
That is correct.
So we had some earlier discussion on a tower. That was a similar height, didn't it?
That tower is no more part of the plan.
But it was a similar height, wasn't it?
I don't recall what the height is. I can't.
Okay. Would you consider this a safety issue?
No, this is
pretty high.
It is, but it's standard practice. I mean, we have a clay core to the berm that prevents it from failing. These areas are fenced and to prevent people from getting into them.
Now the base of this berm is at the water table. So basically, according to the lines here on that cross section there, again on sheet 16-20.
That is showing that the water table and worst case scenario could be at the surface, but the water table is not at the surface at the base of that slope.
Now that you mentioned about siting relative to ledge, there's a lot of ledge on that hillside in that area. Are you concerned with the when this retention pond is full of water that this berm may slide down the ledge at all?
I'm not. We do standard practices to prevent that from happening.
Mr. Osborne, is the crux of your concern one of safety about the berm size, structural integrity, that sort of thing?
Yes, it is. And I would also add is that you're taking water that was, water that's shed from the buildings, parking lot, the asphalt, impermeable surfaces, and you're shifting it in another part of the lot. And so there's going to be a concentration where basically the water is moved from one portion of the site to another. So that's going to saturate that particular area of the lot. And so that's going to flow over that's going to increase the water table for that area just because you're putting more water in there. And so the pitch is over towards my property. So there is a seasonal stream there, and it looks like this is going to be, there's going to be a lot more water added to that particular location on the site, and it's going to drain over in my direction.
The discharge point for this is down towards the wetland on the west end of the property, which does discharge to a stream that actually runs north under Sousa Road after it discharges from our pond. So I don't believe it would impact your property.
Okay, I do see, again, sheet 4 of 20 for that attachment. And you do have the term wet meadow. And just looking at the topo lines there, it looks like, I think it's reasonable to assume that some water will be getting into that.
So what I'd like to do here, thank you, Mr. Osborne, is have Molly, I'd like for you to respond to that. And then if we need a second opinion, I'd like to lean on what will be our consulting engineering team from Weston and Sampson to sort of take a look at that and offer a second opinion. Because I don't think anyone here on the board is qualified to weigh in on that. But please.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we are awaiting peer review comments, and we're also, like I said, still in process with DEM, who's going to review all the storage, all the discharge, and all aspects of the stormwater system before, and the protection of the wetlands, which would involve changing the water table as part of this permit. So,
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the board or staff here? Sorry. Sir. If you could just.
Bill Parisi, 264 Captain Circle. The question is, on these units or apartments, is there a limit to the maximum people per unit?
Mr. Mancini, can you respond to that?
In other words, I'm not worried like a 3-bedroom could be a study, office, and a couple. Could a 3-bedroom be a family of 6 or 8, Ken?
Yeah, so I understand your question, and essentially, do we limit the number of occupants per apartment? No, legally, there's no limitation that we're going to provide that says that you maximize, you can't have more than 3 people living per apartment. But I think that there is going to be, it's a management issue that I'm sure is going to be policed by the management company to ensure that because there are apartments, and so I don't think that the management company is going to want to abuse the amount of occupants that are in each apartment. So, for example, if you have a studio and you've got 4 families living in that studio, I'm pretty confident the management company's put a stop to that. But legally, I don't believe that we're in a position to legally say that you can't have more than 1 family per unit. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that.
Okay. I guess my question comes down to 18 students.
Yeah.
I could base, on more people per apartment, you can have 100 students. I mean, so that data is basically, to me, is meaningless. I mean, I think you should look at Bourne, those places, look at how many people are in there. I guess you can't.
Well, we actually do have the data. We have the student population data currently between grades kindergarten and grade 12 from both Bourne Mill and Sandy Woods, and it's not a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're done here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll see you next month, and we'll have our engineering here, we'll have our architect here, we'll have Joe Lombardi return, and we'll also have our market analysis study that was prepared. We'll have a short presentation about that as well. That was part of the checklist.
Yep, and we'll keep dibs on sort of the acceptance of the share within 10 days.
Okay, Mr. Mancini, we can just get hard copies of the materials that we submitted so we can pass them out.
Yeah, okay.
I'll have them,
All right. Ed, how many copies do you need? 6.
All right, we are going to move on to agenda item 2, Trilogy Tiverton LLC out of Providence. This is a master plan review. I'm going to give it 30 seconds to
but at least we can put the microphones on the podium.
Yeah, back.
All right. I think we're good. All right, let's move forward here. All right, we're moving forward. This is agenda item 2, Trilogy Tiverton LLC, master plan review, major land development. This is located at 0 Main Road, Sousa Road, plat 119, lot 124. Zoning is general commercial and pedestrian friendly. Destination overlay zoning districts. The action is a discussion and possible vote on major land development master plan application. We have a lot to cover on this one. Buckle up. Here we go.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney Matthew Landry from the Office of Bush and Kavanaugh on behalf of the applicant, Trilogy Tiverton LLC. I'm joined by Chris Duhamel from Dupree Engineering, who's in the process of setting up the projector so we can show you some slides that some may be included in your packet, but for the benefit of everyone in the audience, we can show you some conceptual plans, the architecturals.
What's that? Looking. Working?
All right, we're going to give it like 5 minutes so that we can set up an auxiliary projector for folks.
I've got this other
What is it?
I think we'll walk through this for Central Library.
There we go. Thank you for your indulgence. Some of this may be in your packet, but this is a conceptual rendering of what is being proposed. Julie Barlick from ZDS Architecture is with us. I'll have her talk a little bit about the site design and the architectural proposal that's here. Jordan Durham, representative from Trilogy, is also here to answer any questions regarding sort of the pivot here with this design. You may recall we came in front of the board a couple of months ago on a pre-application and pitched a couple of different proposals for this. I think what makes this project a little bit unique from what you typically see is that this is actually already an approved project, not this design. There's an approved master plan for this site. It came in as a comprehensive permit for 46 units. It was a mixed-use project that was mostly permitted by right. There were only a few waivers that were approved under that comp permit that came in. We've since had a couple of extensions to the vesting period, and that is set to sunset in January of 27. Some of the reason for the change here is that, Jordan can speak to this, but the market has changed significantly with commercial units. There was a significant amount of live-work type commercial units associated with the existing approval, and that the market has really changed and shifted quite a bit. So that's why the applicant is pivoting here a bit. So this is an amendment to the master plan that's being proposed. Really, the grounds here that there are no showstoppers from what was already approved. This is actually a less intense, less dense design that's being presented to be amended here. The shift, excuse me, the shift is for a 40-unit, excuse me, development with maintaining the existing, or excuse me, the proposed commercial building along Main Road. That commercial structure will be situated along Main Road with commercial on the first, excuse me, the first floor. And we'll also have 4 residential units in that building. 4 of the units will be LMI units. Now, this isn't a comprehensive permit application, but the applicant is proposing to maintain 4 of the LMI units to be situated in that building. That main rendering that you saw on the first slide, that's just a conceptual rendering of what that building is proposed to look like for some light commercial, like florist, coffee shop. I know there's been some discussions with potential tenants on what that would look like. The remainder of the buildings to the rear is above grade. There'll be 17 duplexes, 2 single-family structures situated in there. And then, again, the mixed-use building with 4 units for a total of 40. That's a reduction in the 46 units that's currently approved for the site. Again, the biggest difference is the removal of most of the commercial units from the remainder of the site. Now, making this a little bit more interesting is that this project will require a text amendment. There was some back and forth between myself and council as to what the proper procedure would be for this. And to avoid the need to have to go through the comprehensive permit process and ask for any waivers, there was a consensus that we would need a text amendment to the RMUC regulations, which is section 18 of your regulations. It's an age-restricted mixed-use community. You've got regulations set out for that type of development. And that section was really designed only for the villages at Mount Hope Bay. That's the only property town-wide that you can do this project the way it's written. The reason why we asking for it to be applied to this project is, one, it's a 55-plus community. For a number of the reasons that you just heard in the last project before us, there's really no school-age children demand with the 55-plus project. There's far less fiscal impacts, and there's far less trips and traffic and things of that nature with a 55-plus community. That's evidenced by the Mount Hope, the villages of Mount Hope Bay directly across the street. This parcel was actually part of that larger parcel that was approved for the villages of Mount Hope Bay. And there's a provision in the RMUC ordinance that actually contemplates contiguous lots, even separated by a public street. Now, this isn't in the same ownership, but it really was designed to be part of the villages of Mount Hope Bay. The reason for the text amendment is the consensus was that there's a jurisdictional requirement that we can't ask for a waiver from unless we go the comp permit route. And that jurisdictional requirement is that you need 90 acres of land and over 2,000 feet of frontage on navigable waterways. That's why the villages of Mount Hope Bay is really the only place in town you can do an RMUC project. And respectfully, it doesn't make a lot of sense. 55-plus communities are very desirable in most municipalities because of the reduction in fiscal impacts, and they're very attractive to a certain demographic in the community. And one of the elements that we'll have to establish for that text amendment is the consistency with the comprehensive plan. Ms. Sweet put together a brief staff report just on some of the different hats that this board will have to wear when reviewing this project. And I agree that that consistency element with the comp plan is an important part of that. This board will render a recommendation only, advisory recommendation to the town council that ultimately will have the authority and the jurisdiction to act on the text amendment itself. Any development approval that this board renders would obviously be conditioned upon getting that text amendment approved. But with respect to the consistency with the comprehensive plan, there's a whole paragraph and pages about the villages of Mount Hope Bay and the need to address the aging population and encourage mixed-use development and age-restricted type developments like this. So I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be consistent. It's very much in line with providing housing for that demographic. In terms of townwide impacts, the RMUC district does not allow this type of development in any other residential zones. This is a general commercial district. It's a pedestrian-friendly overlay district as well. I really can't think of any other places in town, even if you amended the ordinance, that you could actually do this based on the way the ordinance is written. And we're not suggesting that you change it to allow it anywhere else. It's perfectly applicable to this property that's zone GC. And because the restrictions that are written into this that are somewhat out of date, it really prohibits it in any other residential district. I think there's maybe one industrial zone that you could do this in. But in terms of downstream consequences and concerns for where else you could do a 55 plus, I don't think this is probably one of the only parcels that you could do it the way it's written. So respectfully, it's a far less intense design by removing the commercial element, but we do preserve a commercial component as part of this development. We maintain some LMI units, and the ratio is more important where that denominator is not being increased because of all the market rate units that would normally occur at a comprehensive permit application. If it was a comp permit application, you may have more LMI units, but you'd have far more market rate units to offset it. So this strikes a more appropriate balance in terms of market rate units and the LMI units in that component. Two specific concerns and conditions of the original master plan approval were to provide an easement to the cemetery and ease of access for maintenance. There are 2 parking spots that are being provided as part of this development to allow easy access to that cemetery. I know some folks spoke at the pre-application and raised concerns about that, but we've maintained spaces for that to allow parking and visitors and things of that nature. The other big component that was discussed at the original master plan hearing, as well as the pre-app hearing, was some recreational space. There's a green space that Chris can go into a little bit more detail. It's basically an overlook area. These barbecue areas, recreation areas are required as part of the RMUP ordinance. We're proposing to make that an overlook area with some seating for the residents. There was some discussion about whether or not you could connect the residential uses with that commercial component along Main Street. And for reasons that Chris can explain, there's an awfully steep grade there that would make it almost impossible to connect the 2 phases of this development, particularly because of ADA compliance and other issues that come up with trying to design a staircase that's safe and that has that type of grade change. So that's all I have by way of an overview. Again, it's an amended master plan application from an existing approval that had 46 units and a significant amount of commercial space. For market reasons, we're removing the commercial spaces. We don't want dead, empty spaces as part of this development that aren't going to be occupied. Rather focus on the residential component, but maintain a logical commercial space along the main area that provides a coffee shop, a florist, or some type of light commercial use while maintaining the LMI units. I think this is probably a good segue for Chris to go over some of the site features and the design. If we could have Chris sworn in just to testify regarding the site plan.
Mr. Chairman, we swear or affirm the testimony you shall give to this board in this matter shall be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that you solemn affirmation.
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Chris, if you could just take us through the plans, please.
Certainly. This site was looked at with the master plan that was previously approved in February of 2023. It's an 8.3 acres site. There is a small wetland area subject to storm flow that is located on site and verified by the DEM and now has a 20-foot setback to it. Other than that, there are no other wetlands. There is a cemetery that's abutting the property off-site at historic cemetery number 41 that has significance. There is an access off the property to the cemetery, but as Matt has said, we're going to be providing access within our development plan. There's existing water and sewer on Sousa Road. There's a sewer easement that is located on the south boundary of Sousa Road and traverses across Main Road to the with a 36-inch cross culvert. There's drainage that exists on Main Road that is draining the area subject to storm flow within the easement itself, and then it drains again westerly to across Main Road. The site was evaluated at an environmental site assessment by Sage Environmental and submitted to DEM, and it's been classified as an unrestricted residential use without a need for an ELUR, environmental land use restriction. The previous development had 46 units, and on the second floor generally, and the first floor had 12,000 square foot of commercial retail. It also had a 120-seat restaurant that would be located on the site. There's a proposed 2,800 linear feet of driveway with 3 acres of impervious surface being proposed, parking of 172 spaces. The proposed development that you see in front of you with the age-restricted mixed-use community concept is greatly reduced. There are 34 units that are 3-bedroom condominiums in duplex, and there are 2 units that are single-family that are part of the condominium complex. The main road has the commercial building as previously requested. This is now going to be a 1,755 square foot commercial space on the first floor, and then there'll be 4 apartments, excuse me, 1 on the first floor and 3 on the second floor. Each one of these apartments would be dedicated for a low amount of income use. The total driveway area is reduced from the 2,800 linear feet to 1,200 linear feet, so there's a drastic decrease. Access to the site was analyzed by Beta Engineering, given that there's a crest on Sousa Road, having a safe separation from the crest for safe stopping distance. It was said that this is the optimum location for that driveway access to the site, so we're maintaining that, this entrance. The roadway is designed as a 22-foot wide private driveway. Given the soils on site as being optimum for sandy loam and with 6 to 8 foot water tables, we've designed the site drainage to be pervious pavement so that it would reduce the amount of runoff discharge off-site through rate and volume. The planning board had asked for a turnaround, and the fire marshal had asked for a turnaround. We have a revised land use within this area to have reinforced turf. So it still maintains the open space area of that end, but it is fortified so that the fire truck can do a 3-point turn to exit the site. The planning board had asked for, as Matt had said, access to the cemetery. We're providing for a sidewalk to be built, a stairway, and 2 parking spots, for access to the cemetery. Planning board had asked for sidewalks along Sousa Road and sidewalks within the interior development, and those are incorporated within this design. Planning board asked for this overlook to be constructed, where there's about 8,000 feet of an overlook that would be dedicated or reserved for the residences within the development. It's not to be a public overlook. The grade change from Main Road to the overlook area is substantial. It's 30 feet or more, so it would have to be a switch road built that could not in any circumstances equal ADA requirements, being a public access. If it were considered a public access, it wouldn't qualify. So the expense of building the switchback, the use being restricted to just the residents themselves, there was no, practical means to put in that switchback access road. So that's the only thing that we're asking for consideration on, leaving that out. I think I've covered all the, this would be certainly serviced by public water, public sewer. We would have to go through the utilities for the analysis for extension of public water to the site. Public sewer should be fairly easy. It's quite a drop off to Sousa Road, so that we feel we have it considered to be extended through the commercial site, so that all the buildings would be serviced by gravity. Parking on site is met with the minimum requirements of 89 spaces. We provided for 146 parking spaces. The spaces would be designed to the Harmuck standard by 10 by 20 within the site, and 9 by 18 within the commercial site. For space size, ADA parking would be included. There are 2 spaces minimally required, and they're included within the commercial site. Lastly, the development is to be built in phases. Phase 1A would be somewhere. The phases are shown in red. Phase 1A are these initial 7 duplexes. Phase 1B would be the commercial site. Phase 2 is this interior area, and Phase 3 finally is the upper area. So
4 phases in total?
Yes. So we worked closely with our architects in citing a minimal amount of buildings on site, reduction from what was previously approved. Any questions I can answer?
I have a number of questions. First of all, I just want to acknowledge and thank you all for addressing some of the concerns that were raised the last time around. That's appreciated. Just not necessarily on the designs per se, but my questions relate to some of the content that was sent out. Can we clarify the water situation here? Because in the packet that we received, we had a water will serve report for Stonebridge Fire District from February of 2022. And then later on in the packet, there's a letter to North Tiverton Fire District that requests public water confirmation and actually makes some references to OWTS, which threw me off because I'm pretty sure we're looking to hook up with Tiverton Wastewater District.
Yes.
Correct. So can we clarify, like, who is aiming to provide water here and who is the water district that we are working with?
From what DePreet Engineering is working with south of Sousa Road, that there is some kind of concern who is of jurisdiction. And initially it was Stonebridge, and now North Tiverton seems to be within the jurisdiction, so we're working on that. We did have a letter of will serve, but it wasn't a model. We would have to run a model for the preliminary plan.
And the reason why I'm asking, I think it's important to get clarification, because if the will serve letter from 2022 is sort of like, if Stonebridge is like, there's a lot more development out that's been proposed and under consideration in that neck of the woods since February of 2022, right? So I think the conditions on the ground have likely changed.
Yes, we have a lot of work to do on the water.
Okay.
And if any reference was to OWTS, that's a mistake.
Yeah, like that stood out pretty. So maybe a copy and paste there. So second question is, what is being proposed for buffer, sort of whatever we want to call it, between this proposed development and the development that's slated for the southwest corner? That's the intersection of Sousa and Main.
Like, under the, sorry, I'm losing my voice. Under the RMUC regulations, there's a 40-foot buffer requirement. We have asked for, not a waiver of that, but an amendment to that as part of the text amendment, to 30 feet, because that is how the project was designed, with a 30-foot buffer. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah, the RMUC setback is greater than what GC would allow.
What is being planned to be used as the buffer, though?
There's quite a bit of grading that's be required on the north face, and that area could be replanted. This is quite
Yeah,
high.
Mr. Duhamel, I'm concerned about the...
This one?
Nope, southwest.
Yeah.
Because there's probably some bright lights and stuff going on down there. I'm not naming them, but that's who I'm talking about. I'm just curious, like, what is the thinking so far there? Because I have to imagine potential residents over there, based on the numbers that I saw, are gonna probably pay a hefty dollar amount for those units, and I'm just curious.
As you can see, this is the landscaping plan, and we don't have any buffers being proposed at this time. We could certainly do a better job.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of a potential resident who's gonna be in one of those units.
Those are high rent units. They'll have tremendous views of the bay. So Jordan, would you like to help?
And a gas station. So
I'll have Jordan Garrett on behalf of the applicant. You just need to be sworn.
I don't want to get into that, but I'm just kidding.
No, I just happy to help
I
you
think
answer the question.
we need to swear you in too.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you shall give to this board in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and that is your solemn affirmation?
I do.
So,
I understand your question. Obviously, we would love it if there wasn't a brightly lit 24-hour gas station going in behind those units on the corner there. But that being the case, we plan to mitigate it with as much as we can with landscaping treatments, design features, and where we place windows within those units. Some of the things Julie can address as well.
Okay.
But keep in mind, we are also 30 feet above that gas station, so we're kind of looking over it as opposed to looking right at it. And we hope that this board is doing everything it can to make sure that the lighting quality that comes from that development is downlit and low and not intrusive and not offensive. And we hope that we can be collaborative in that process and get our say in it too.
Okay, great, thank you.
Like I said, we wish it wasn't a gas station going there, but it is what it is.
My last question, and then we'll open it up, is regarding the sewer hookup. Again, it's been a while since that was coordinated with the Tiverton Wastewater District. Do we need to revisit anything there?
Oh, we can certainly update the materials. I mean, this is a less intense use than what was originally contemplated, so I don't expect any issues, but we can certainly ask Chris and Dupree to update the documents to reflect this project as proposed.
And get it over to the wastewater district?
Certainly.
Yeah, and same thing for the water, obviously with the reduction of the commercial space and the restaurant use. We have a much less intense water demand here than what was previously approved.
Okay. I know we got to talk about the RMUC situation, but any other questions for Mr. Duhamel on the engineering of the design?
I have one question related to the phasing. Can we see the plan that had the phasing lines?
That's it.
So, just for clarification, one is, can you run through them one more time?
This is 1A.
Yep.
And it goes up here, so these 6 duplexes. 1B is the commercial. 2.
And I'll just address, just in terms of why we're calling it 1A and 1B. We kind of expected and anticipated that the board might have some influence on
the timing of the construction of a certain number of residential units before we complete the affordable units. So we just wanted to call it one. Phase one is intended to be some number of residential units along with the commercial and the affordable components. So we understand that the board might want to see some sort of time performance on that, and we're happy to engage in that.
Yeah, I mean, my bigger concern was that I didn't want to see all the residential units get developed and then that commercial space never come to fruition.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's what we call it, phase
pleased to
one
see
and
that
1A.
you
So like
shifted that into the middle.
we'd
of
like
the
to be able to
program.
start both of them concurrently at a minimum. And, maybe we have some pullback where we can't complete the last 15 units before the commercial is at some level of progress or something, but
And related to the LMI units, not a comprehensive permit, but still would anticipate that we would follow some of those guidelines in that these units are like not noticeably distinguishable from other units. They're sort of spread throughout the development. And so we're early in the process. I
Yeah,
just
well, what
raised that for further consideration.
what we're proposing is a little different from what a typical comprehensive permit would allow, or what the model of a comprehensive permits. We're not proposing affordable units integrated into the for sale townhomes. We're proposing 4 LMI units as a self-contained building within the commercial mixed-use building. So all 4 of those units would be LMI units at 80% AMI under normal Rhode Island housing regulations.
Are those for sale
Rental,
units?
those would be rental.
Rental units.
The for sale market for affordable housing is extraordinarily broken. So those would be 4 rental apartments that could be developed and owned by us, or they could be developed in partnership with a CDC or a nonprofit that would like to own and manage that property. We're open to those discussions, but we want to keep them as potentially distinct because the financing of mixed income affordable housing development is much easier if it's 100% affordable and a distinct financeable asset as opposed to integrated within a condominium complex.
Thank you.
So I know we're still kind of trying to give the appearance that we're, we sound like rural town. And when I look at that small commercial space and relative to the next commercial space that's going to be built out on the corner, it's just going to be buildings and blacktop straight from your commercial building to the corner of Sousa Road. Would there be at least a way to back up that retaining wall and rotate that parking lot 45 degrees to get a little bit of landscaping on that lot?
So obviously we're at a very, and Julie can talk about some of this stuff as well if we get her sworn in, but we would hope to be able to design this in a way that we don't need a retaining wall back there. The building may function as the retaining wall in that back corner there, so.
All right, so that being said, can you go back to the, so
This one?
the parking area there, right?
This one?
For the commercial space and the food space, going to be 4 apartments right in the front, right along the road.
Yep.
Could that get rotated to free up a little bit of space in that lot?
And rotate the building or
rotate the parking area 45 degrees to give there maybe some space between the lot line and the parking area? Even whether it's 20, 30, 40 feet.
You're talking about this area? Or
yeah,
you
just
concerned about
rotate it
this
so it goes a
area?
long way, so it runs not instead of parallel to me, but perpendicular to me.
The challenge is that this is where it starts to get really steep.
It is, yeah, and I see you have the retaining
It's
wall there,
35
right?
feet,
So
there's 35 feet of change from this point to this point right here. It's a big hill.
We're trying to limit the grading, it's in a pedestrian friendly area, so we're utilizing sidewalks, landscaping.
There is a fairly substantial amount of landscaping between the building and the street parking.
I see that.
Good. Any other comments? This is a public hearing, so I'm going to have to get to that point with you.
Sure. Julie Bartlett from ZDS Architecture. I think she can provide some color on the design and the layout. Julie just need to be sworn in.
Yep. Julie, do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give to this board? This matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that is your solemn affirmation.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm going to try to avoid repeating some of what has been said by both of my colleagues here, so I might go a little quicker than I would have done traditionally. But here's a conceptual rendering of the commercial building and the 4 residential units as indicated previously, trying to really showcase, as we were mentioning, as much landscape as possible on the site and a glimpse of what we're seeing beyond with the condo buildings up the hill. And this rendering actually purposely doesn't show a large retaining wall because we're really hoping to try to avoid that and to grade it with natural methods of doing this. So, ahead. So as mentioned, we have
two different style duplexes on the property and then two single-family sort of towards the rear. The darker gray or blue tone, I apologize, they're both about 2,200 square feet, individual units, so about 4,300 square feet per building. The darker blue has driveways and garages facing the street with their front doors facing the street. The longer linear blue, lighter blue units have driveways and garages sort of facing that service road, and then purposely our front doors are facing Sousa Road or the private drive in an attempt to make this a more pedestrian-friendly community and to further engage Sousa Road as well. And I know that Chris already spoke about the fire truck turnaround, which is one of the reasons for sort of the angle and the shape and the positioning of the buildings that we sort of worked through. As you maneuver towards the rear of the site, we mentioned we have the access to the cemetery and the parking there, and then further towards the rear we have the two single-family homes as well. I have a quick slide for each of the types of duplexes. So the first one, which I mentioned, has both the garages and the front doors facing the primary roads. And we have proposed a variety of board and batten, like Hardy style board and batten, shake, shingle, trim, primarily asphalt shingle roof, and some standing seam metal at our porches and sort of accented features. We haven't identified colors yet, but that's sort of our conceptual concept for each of the structures, so you'll see that on each of them. Also in each of them we have primary living spaces, kitchen, living, dining, some utilities, and a primary bedroom on the first floor, and then our secondary bedrooms and like a family room or an office would be on the upper floors. Duplex B is the more linear option, which we were mentioning, that has the garage that you would walk, if you lived there, you park in your garage and sort of walk through a back hallway, or as a guest, you could also approach it pedestrian through a front door and on a sidewalk as well. Again, similar materials here. And in all cases, we're also trying to make sure we're separating our front doors to really give an identity to each of the two townhomes so that they're not, sort of side-by-side front doors either. The single-family home, again, pulls a lot of the same elements, but is a little grander at 2,500, almost 2,500 square feet, and does offer similar concept, and it's a slightly different layout. At the back door, actually, in this case, if you go back to the site plan, they have sort of a really nice opportunity for the overlook view behind there. So there's a potential for patios or a deck off of the rear living room, which you can see at the top of the plan, as well as the master bedroom sort of facing that way. The commercial structure down off of Main Street, as mentioned, looking to be a small commercial, florist, cafe, some sort of a small business locally would be fantastic. About 1,700 square feet with assumed back of house sort of for deliveries on the north side. We have a lobby and mailroom and sort of some utilities for the residential entry access point on the plan south, if you're looking at it right here. And on that lower level, we'll have a type A moderately accessible unit as well. On the upper floor, we have three units, 2 one-bedrooms and 1 two-bedroom unit that we're offering. And again, similar materials, but here we've already sort of started to establish what we think about colors, some sort of a slate blue, darker gray, primarily board and batten with a few accented of shake and some natural, I'm going to go back to the rendering, which is front, sort of some natural wood elements and some posts and brackets and sort of a darker black window with some white trim as well. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that.
You showed a drawing of your, just a top overview of like the streets, showed some parking areas. I mean, yeah, all right. So that shows 3 parking spots. They're going to say 2 or 3.
Is it 2 or 3 parking spaces?
Right there, but we have
Just 2.
Just, all right.
Yeah, it's just 2. This is graphically, it's sort of the access to the pathway right there. It probably should have been on our plan, it should have been striped. So.
Any other comments or questions on the architecture and design? No? Looks good. Thank you. All right. Any other?
That's a quick.
Actually, do you have any plans of doing any solar? Anybody doing this?
We'd evaluate that at the time of,
Your lots?
we'd evaluate that at the time of construction. I certainly we could offer residents, I don't know if we do it on every single unit.
Okay. What about the commercial?
We've done solar on a lot of buildings that we've done around Rhode Island, and we'd love to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the tax credits just got mixed, and we won't
Appreciate that.
timeline for it.
I think you should speak with the building official about the new standards in Rhode Island for solar.
Before we open this up for public, do we want to talk about the Armand situation? Would Ashley, your amendment, or?
You'd like to go in?
All right. Yeah. Let's do the Armand discussion, and then we'll open it up for public hearing.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, but really what I tried to do for you here is outline the process, because this is a two-part process. You have a master plan you have a project that's also requesting a zoning amendment, and so there's a process that happens when that's being requested, and that is that you consider that project at the first stage of review. You've had a pre-app, and that you would give a conditional approval to the project and a recommendation on the zoning ordinance amendment. That recommendation goes to the town council. They consider that zoning ordinance amendment. If that amendment is adopted, the applicant returns to you, has perfected their master plan by having that zoning amendment approved. This memo focuses more on the zoning amendment piece of it than it does on the actual master plan application. I have some concerns with the idea that we're considering this as an amended master plan. The two projects are vastly different. Looking at the site plans, they may not look significantly different, but when you get into the material and what's behind that, we've gone from comp permit to not comp permit. We've gone from no RMUC to an RMUC with a zoning amendment. We've gone from, I think, 43 to 34 units. We've gone from 25% to 10% affordable. So I don't think that it matters in terms of the applicant's timeline, because they're either have a master plan approval that they're amending through a major modification, or they're asking you for a new master plan approval. Time-wise, I honestly don't think it makes a difference. My concern is what you will consider to be, in terms of magnitude of change, what you will accept as a major modification. To me, the changes are significant enough that it feels outside of what I would consider a modification to a master plan, even a major modification. I mean, we've gone, like I said, we've gone from comp permit to not, to no RMUC to an RMUC with a zone change. It just feels very large to try to handle through a modification process, and you're setting a precedent as to what you will allow to be modified in terms of scale before you just say this is an entirely different application. And again, maybe I'm wrong and the applicant can correct me, but from a timing perspective, I don't think it makes a difference.
I also think procedurally it's cleaner. We just consider
I
this
agree.
a new master plan application.
Yeah, and for purposes of how we characterize it, I think that the review process is really the same, the standards are the same. I think out of an abundance of caution, we want to make sure that we preserve all the rights that we have in our existing approval while this proceeds, and obviously this would supersede that if it gets fully approved. So I don't have an issue calling it a new master plan application, preserving any existing rights that we have in that current approval.
So procedurally, what does that look like?
It really doesn't look any different than what you kind of have in front of you. They're either if we're proceeding as this were a new master plan, it doesn't change what's in front of you, and it doesn't change the timing of what's in front of you. Just from a procedural process, again, I think we're skirting on the edges of like taking on too much through a modification process.
Yeah, I would be inclined to proceed with this being a new master plan application for a variety of reasons. It just seems the most prudent thing to pursue. So, what do others feel here?
Thank you. I find this very confusing, and that I just found out about this. I'd never heard ARMUC mentioned to the board. Staff, I understand by reading. I went in to get a copy of the certificate of completeness. I saw ARMUC. I mean, I was involved in the initial ARMUC, and you've said some things that weren't correct, but we won't go there. But I think that, you know, that it was tasteful. The reason for the ARMUC was to get the sewage down to the industrial park. I mean, that goes back many years. But I think in good planning, we should all have the time to read this, think about it. I mean, this is really my first viewing of it. I mean, I am not a rubber stamp, as you well know, but I think I would feel more comfortable being a new plan. I mean, new master plan.
Any other feedback on that? All right, so I think we should proceed in that direction. Now, in terms of the proposed changes to the ARMUC with the related zoning amendment changes there, that's a bigger conversation because of the potential for what, not saying it's negative or positive, but it will sort of set a new direction and a new precedent for the town.
Yeah, I mean, zone changes are not that uncommon, but what this zone change does is changes the parameters under which an ARMUC can be applied. And I understand the conversation about, you know, how many parcels does this apply to? I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I do know that we've taken away 2 of the requirements that would have not permitted this on really any other parcel in town. And so that's a policy consideration for the town in general. Does this make sense from a policy perspective? I understand that there's a discussion of the ARMUC in the comp plan, but I think we have to, and I'm not saying that I don't think that this is a good idea. It's just that this is a bigger policy question. I think that the town, you need to look at this not just from what this does on this property, but where does this allow this type of development elsewhere under the parameters that are changed. It's reducing the setbacks that are required. It's reducing the size of the parcel significantly. We're going from 90-something acres to 8. We're taking away the requirement for that frontage on navigable waters. Again, I'm not saying that these are necessarily bad changes. I just want to make sure that you're asking bigger, like kind of more global questions about, does this make sense to make these changes to this district that could be applicable in other parcels? Maybe it makes sense to do a quick run of like, well, where would it be allowed? And does that concern us? Or do we run that and look at it and say, you know what, it only allows it in 2 other properties in town and maybe that's not a big deal. But we haven't done that and haven't had that conversation. And because this is not a zone change that is going to be specific to one parcel, or we haven't confirmed that at this point, I think you have to look at this from a higher level.
I'm glad that you brought up the modeling sort of component here, because that's what I've been thinking as I've been sort of going through this is like, okay, if we make the changes that are proposed, how does that fit with, like, where could that manifest?
Yep.
If you will?
And I think
we should map that out and be really clear and feel comfortable with like, okay, that's acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to keep in mind, and this is not, this is not the fault of the applicant, they're just kind of in this position, but you're about to embark on a comp plan rewrite. This is a policy shift that you should talk about at a kind of at a larger level than just this parcel. You're also have been doing a lot of zoning amendments, and how does this sort of fit into those? And I think there is a little bit of a larger discussion that has to happen around these changes than just what is happening on this piece of property, because we haven't done any analysis to say like, yes, it's only going to happen here and that's fine. The answer may be that, or it may be, well, no, it's going to happen elsewhere, but that's also fine. But we just haven't done that yet.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I would propose, and I welcome the rest of the board's way in here, but I think we should continue this discussion, come back in March with that analysis, and be able to have that informed discussion so that we can come out of the March meeting, in theory, with a positive recommendation to the town council or not. Would that be something that staff could do between now and March, is to try and model based on the language changes?
We can do it, I mean, yes, we can do it to a certain degree. So we can plug in certain parameters, but we're not going to catch every single nuance of site design in running a GIS analysis. We're going to kick out everything that doesn't meet the minimum lot size. We're going to kick out everything that is not within the zoning district where this is permitted. When you start getting to buffering and setbacks, it starts to become more of sometimes a parcel specific kind of review. If we kick all those things out of the analysis and we have 3 left, then I could pretty confidently tell you we could apply a 30-foot buffer around the perimeter of the property and tell you what's left. If we kick those things out and we have 15 left, that becomes a more labor-intense kind of process. But it's certainly something that we can do at a relatively high level.
Would the rest of the board like to see that analysis in March? Okay.
I do. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
But I think we should all look at this ARMA ordinance too, and see other things.
It's 2 sides of the same coin. Yeah, we'd have to do both. Chris?
No, I would agree. I mean, one of the things we want to guard against is unintended consequences. So we really have to take a deep look into this to see what the other ramifications are. But I think there's also an opportunity to look at this in a way that doesn't open up the ARMA everywhere else. And I think there are some possibilities there that I've already been considering. I'm going to sort of test those out in the coming days, and then we'll add that to the discussion, whether there's a way to do this in a way that doesn't open it up everywhere else, or if it does open it up everywhere else, are we comfortable with that, and what does that actually mean? So I think we can provide both of those alternatives.
Our original intention was not to open the can of worms across the whole town. We were hoping to just seek waivers from a couple of specific elements of the RMUC that would only apply to this parcel, but it was determined with Solicitor Romano that wasn't jurisdictional or allowed.
Right, yeah, and I think we're in an interesting situation. I've never been in a position where there is a jurisdictional issue here. We initially asked for variances from these items because that we thought it was something that you could ask for relief from. And respectfully, I think it is difficult because of the way the ordinance is written. So that's what we're trying to correct here. In all fairness, I don't think we did a great job providing you with a lot of context on the text amendment. That was procedurally what we figured out, worked out, needed to happen. I think it would help if our office or an expert or somebody could further analyze the comp plan and your ordinance and how this would affect the town-wide. My review of it is very limited. The way it's written, it's prohibited in almost every other district other than the GC district. Industrial specifically calls out that it's not allowed in all these residential districts. So I think you'll find that it is very limited in nature to where you can do it. But I also think that we could expand a little bit upon some of the limiting language that allows it to happen on this property, but does provide the town some assurances that you're not going to have 10 other people trying to do the same thing. I think the logic behind the RMUC makes a lot of sense. I think 55 plus ordinances are very common. The way this one is written, I think needs some work, and I think we can certainly work with the town, but I would be happy to provide the town with some narrative in our position on how it reads, and, you know, staff and the town can conduct its own analysis, and maybe having a professional come in and kind of explain that too. I think that makes a lot of sense. So we're not trying to put the town in a precarious, you know, position. I do think that this is a very limited ordinance, where right now you can only do it on the property it's already been done on. And if we open it up, it's really not gonna have all these downstream consequences the way it's written. So we'd like to work with the town, and I think we can find that dialogue. So whatever we can do to help, I think that's, you know, the applicant's intent too here.
I think that would be great. Just for reference, I did a quick search on our current comp plan, and RMUC, ARMUC only appears twice.
Yep.
So, okay. This is a public hearing, so I am going to proceed to open the public hearing and see if we have any comment. So we're going to open the public hearing now. Is there any comment from the public? Sir, can you come up? And, sure. Ed, can you hand over the mic?
The site plan. Hi, Robert Jobin, 1131 Stafford Road. I just want to comment on this public safety aspect. I know he mentioned we went to the local fire marshal, but maybe we'll look at it a little closer. So if you allow me to go up to the map and point out a number of issues that I can see immediately.
Sure. Just
Can we
have qualify your...
If he could use that, then
Yeah.
he could stay at the mic and we
Yeah.
could hear him.
Can you just, for the benefit, not everyone knows your professional background?
Okay, retired Assistant Chief, East Providence Fire Department, previous Assistant Deputy State Fire Marshal with the State of Rhode Island. Number of certifications, I can provide them if you want them, but there's plenty along the way. EMS Director for the City of East Providence, also emergency medical services. Just looking at this, this map here. My initial impression was right here. You have two 90-degree turns in that particular road.
You want the fire truck turning plan?
I haven't seen it. I know that the marshal had taken a look at it and was putting the...
This is the fire truck.
Okay, right here. Yeah, that's part of my discussion, but the initial part is right here in this area. There are two 90-degree turns which are absolutely horrible for a number of reasons. First reason is line of sight. There's no line of sight for responding apparatus with those two turns, whether it's police apparatus or fire apparatus. Coming into a section, I know it's going to be an over 55 community, but there are grandchildren involved with an over 55 community. Responding in an apparatus, first thing the kids want to do is see where the apparatus is coming from and where it's going to. So that's an initial bottleneck as far as line of sight. Second bottleneck, I know you folks haven't talked about hydrants in the area. I know it's going to be water, town water. It's an over 55 community, you tend to have more incidents in an over 55 community. Coming in, depending where the hydrants are located, you have an issue. I know there's a hydrant here on the corner of Sousa Road and Main Road. When they're laying a line, they're going to tie this up so no further apparatus. Laying a line means you're connecting to the hydrant. 5-inch hose, 4-inch hose, whatever they have is coming off the truck as you're going up to the scene. That's going to make a bottleneck here for any further apparatus. You're talking about buildings that are over 4,500 square feet. That's a large building. You're not going to be able to get only 1 or 2 trucks there. You're talking a first alarm, second alarm, sometimes a third alarm. So you're going to be backing trucks up onto Sousa Road if this is allowed to continue. You also have a bottleneck in this area. Same thing, depending where hydrant placement is, you have to worry about that. If you go to the topographical map, a quick overlook, don't know if you can. Okay, all these back buildings here, if you look at the topography there, it dips down very, very quickly. That limits firefighter access to that area. Roof access, window access.
That actually goes up.
That goes up, okay. Thought it went down, I didn't see that. So, again, it may limit a little firefighter activity, not as much as if the land descended in that area. But again, you have an over 55 community here, and over 55, as I mentioned earlier, tends to attract more calls for service, usually medical calls, but as time goes on, mistakes are made. People forget to turn their stoves off. Through my career, I've seen a number of people set themselves on fire and set the house on fire, or set, you know. So you have to be concerned about this area here. You also have to be concerned, I heard that the roads were only 22 feet wide. We know recently with all the snow, with the snow piles, with the number of apparatus coming in here, you're gonna cause bottlenecks. So now you're gonna be backing up. And one of the bad things about backing up apparatus is that the incoming firefighters, they have a long way to trudge through snow, through whatever, with pretty close to 70 or 75 pounds of equipment. So by the time they get to the scene, if they have a good walk into that scene, their time in service is very limited before they have to go to rehab. So that's another consideration. Basically, whether the project's good or not, I'm not going to comment on that. I just saw this and wanted to comment on the public safety aspect.
Thank you. There hasn't been a TRC on this?
We had one for the original
For
project,
the
but
original.
not for this one yet.
So we would want a TRC and make sure that our Tiverton Fire Marshal is involved in.
Yeah.
comment on all
I'd
that.
love to speak to him, or love to speak to the chief, because the chief does have a lot of power. He's the authority having jurisdiction in this particular area. Although the fire code doesn't specifically call for 1, 2, and 3 family houses except for fire alarm systems. As the authority having jurisdiction, he can require a number of things, and then you guys can go to the fire board and review to appeal if you don't like that. But again, the width of the road would concern me, and those 2 90-degree turns coming into it.
Thank you. I was remiss, I did not set my timer for 3 minutes. Anybody else?
Meredith Mucci, East Road, Tiverton. About this plan in particular, I just really have only one question, which is there room to park cars on the street? In the event that someone is having a family gathering or something like this? Are those
On
streets-
Sousa Road?
No, I'm sorry, in the neighborhood.
They're 22 foot wide with 5 foot shoulders. You can park on the shoulder. There's a sidewalk you wouldn't park on. On the south side.
Yeah, there's also 4 spots per unit.
There's
so
4 spots per
double
unit.
the parking requirement per unit.
And just for context, so it's not a comprehensive plan, but it doesn't follow the general town rules about density, et cetera. Why do we have to even consider all of this if it's not compulsory? Because they haven't already approved?
No, so they are asking for an amendment to the zoning ordinance as part of their application to the town. So because they applied for that, they've applied for a project that's contingent on that, the town is, like, we have to consider the zoning anybody can apply for a zoning amendment. The town is obligated to receive that zoning amendment and consider it and put it to a public hearing, and this has a project that's linked to that zoning amendment.
But the density, isn't that beyond the density that we usually?
Well, this is zoned general commercial.
Okay.
So there is not, well, there is even a residential density in a general commercial zone, because in Tiverton, in the general commercial zone, mixed use is allowed. So you're allowed to have a residential component. But what they're asking to do is to apply the provisions of that age-restricted mixed-use community to this property, which has a density provision included in it, and they are actually less than what that RMUC density would permit on the property. It essentially says whatever your total area, whatever your total square footage is of developable property, you have to dedicate 80% of that to residential use, and then you take that square footage and divide it by 6,000 square feet per unit, which I think is 55. It's hard to tell in the plans because it's a little blurry, but they're actually under what the density would be for an RMUC. What they're asking for, though, is to have the RMUC applied to this property, which it's currently not eligible for.
And then they need variances to even be eligible for the ARMA.
If the RMUC is amended the way that they've asked for it, then they would comply with the RMUC.
Understood. One last thing, so is this area, the Susan Road, Main Road bits, part of the plan where the buildings are supposed to be built so that's what's on the road and the parking, I'm talking about for the commercial area, the parking is supposed to be behind the building, which I know that we don't necessarily follow, but is part of our plan, right?
So I believe the black dashed line, is that the zone line?
That's the pedestrian friendly.
Right, I can't tell on the plans from here, but there's a zone line there where there's pedestrian friendly in the front, and then there's the general commercials in the rear. Yeah, thank you.
Isn't parking supposed to kind of not be?
It talks about parking to the side and rear.
There's also the landscape consideration.
Right. Because of the grade change.
The grade change there. So, okay.
Is that my number?
That was perfect timing. Anybody else?
Susan Anderson with the Historical Cemeteries Commission. And thank you for letting us have a parking space so we can maintain that. My question is the sidewalk that you have for us to go from the parking up to the cemetery. You mentioned steps. If we're having equipment and we're lugging equipment,
It would be our preference that would be like a gravel path going to your cemetery as
Yeah.
opposed to a concrete
Right.
walkway. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
The only
We don't
difference is
want
it'll have to
steps.
wind through the site. That's why we proposed the steps. It's quite a rise.
I know it is. I've been up there and I'm looking down, yeah. But if we can, because we're gonna be lugging equipment, right,
Sure.
to maintain it. And it's gonna be hard enough to get up. I mean, we have to lug it from Main Road up, and it's horrible up that hill. But this would be easier, but I don't want steps.
I think
If you do like.
I'm not an expert in ADA stuff, but it gets really complicated with ADA access. So it's like if we can make it a maintenance employee path only, it doesn't have to comply
Right,
with
yes.
those requirements. Then
Exactly, yeah.
so we can figure that out together.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last call? Last call for public comment? Okay, we will close the public hearing now. All right. We need to outline next steps here.
Let me correct you. We're not closing the public hearing.
We're going to continue. I just meant, we're done talking.
Yes.
Poor choice.
No worries.
Can I say
Okay.
something?
Yeah.
Please. So I think, shouldn't be nervous. I think the absurdity of putting what's supposed to be a minimum 90-acre project on 8 acres is what everybody is having a hard time trying to wrap their head around. Like, how can that be allowed? How can you continue to keep doing that and count? And it seems like everybody who comes in front of us just wants a little more with a little less. So I think maybe we should do a better job of explaining that.
Well, I just want to add something to that point. I don't disagree, but what I think is different in this situation is that this is not, first of all, this is not a comprehensive permit. So what the applicant is asking for is to have what is an existing provision within the ordinance amended so that it fits this property, and then they would comply with the density requirement of that district. So there's a difference between that and between a comprehensive permit that would have put 45 units on a general commercial property that would have only allowed, I don't know, and I'm just throwing out a number, but maybe 3 through some form of a mixed-use development. So I do appreciate that this is different from what's on the, like what the zoning would permit now, but I don't want to equate this to the same kind of project that like would permit 5 units under its, you know, current density, and they're getting to do 500 units. This is, they're actually doing less residential units, then they would be permitted if this were allowed to have an RMOC. The difference is that if the RMOC doesn't quite qualify for this, they're asking to change the RMOC in order to have it qualify. This is not taking what was proposed on 90 acres and squeezing it onto 8, because what was proposed on 90 acres would have had to use the same density calculation that they're going to use. So 90 acres was a density calculation based on 90 acres. This will be a density calculation based on 80 acres. So I do hear what you're saying, and I do think that this does cause some confusion for the public. It is not one and the same as the 5 units permitted, and we're asking for 500. It's two different animals there. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, where do we go from here?
You directed staff to
Correct.
compile some information. Yeah, there's also compile similar information about the RMOC, as well as water, sewer, new letters, right? Yep.
I think we're going to schedule a TRC.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion to continue this?
Correct.
Okay, including the public. Anybody willing to make that motion to continue this item to the March meeting, inclusive of the public meeting?
So what's that meeting look like? This is step one. I like when we went to whatever after we have tired to do this again to our next meeting.
Well, it depends on what else is on the agenda,
It does.
which we haven't talked about yet. So we'll figure that out. Alan moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Rosemary, any final discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Good evening.
All right, we'll give this a minute to Jane. All right. All right, we're going to move to our next agenda item here. This is agenda item 3, ECC Eagleville LLC. Petition for a major land development, combined master plan, preliminary plan application. Pursuant to Article 9, Section 23-47A and D of the Tiverton Code of Ordinances, requests for waivers on checklists related to certification of completeness. The requested checklist items which the applicant requests to be waived are master plan checklist number 51, a traffic study prepared by a traffic engineer regarding the potential impact of the proposed development on neighboring properties and roads prior to master plan approval, and preliminary plan checklist item number 59, a proposed traffic plan that prior to preliminary plan approval addresses the volume and means of vehicular access to and from the site onto public streets, showing the dimensions and locations of driveways, curb cuts, radii, parking, as well as other off-site traffic improvements necessary to ensure the public safety and convenience. This is all tied to the proposed construction of an 18,000 square foot office and tradesman center. Location is 222 Eagleville Road in Tiverton, AP 105 Lot 601 Industrial Zoning District. Sir.
All right, so, hello everybody, Bo Akers, Bransky Levinson, here on behalf of the ECC Eagleville LLC. Applicant had put in 2 waivers, and we had submitted both master and preliminary applications for major land development on 222 Eagleville Road. Those have been submitted, and the goal here, and I believe Ms. Sweet is in agreement to combine those two to have a preliminary plan meeting. However, before we get there, we're here with the waivers. Today, I did receive a memo from Ms. Sweet regarding the requested waivers. I don't know if the board has that, has reviewed that. I received that today, so I didn't have, obviously, too much time to prepare or discuss necessarily with my client on responding to that, but I will say that I have read it. I have sent that to my client to review, and I sent that to the engineer to review as well, with an understanding of what is in that memorandum. With that being said, I do have a proposal or an idea that perhaps the board and my client can meet somewhere in the middle when it comes to a traffic study. If I can backtrack before I propose that, I brought something with me actually. But before I get there, I know at the comprehensive plan meeting, the town or the board here was concerned about, well, what's going to be in this building that's being proposed. At this moment, my client does not know 100% which exact tenants, and in the application as reflected that it would be whatever's permitted within the industrial zone. As that much can be stated. Perhaps my client might use the full building itself, or perhaps it might be a situation where you have, say, like we spoke last time, a plumber or electrician that has, their fittings, their conduit, etc. The tradesman center, as my clients labeled it, although it's something that's not, defined, of course, within the zoning ordinance. However, it would be similar to something perhaps that exists in Middletown, Rhode Island, and then also the building would be similar to what my client has on, I believe it's 1631 Fish Road. But nonetheless, I do understand the comments that Ms. Sweet made within that memo, and we've discussed it. So, with that being said, I do have something to propose that I'd like to give to you guys. I can also send Ed a email version of this as well. But this is something that we're discussing. My client hasn't given me a yes or no, but it's something that I'd like to propose to the board.
Sure.
Okay, so this, I'll give this to you now, back to Mike.
Only one copy.
I do, but I will.
Okay.
I will send Ed copies as well. In fact, I can possibly email it to you right now. But so this right here is a traffic analysis that was prepared for a project in Massachusetts. It was a similar situation of asking for a traffic study. I believe there was a waiver request here, but what they came to was having a traffic analysis that had the trips generated, etc., and that information provided to the town. So I don't know if this or something similar to this might appease that aspect of the application requirement for a traffic analysis.
I think, I don't want to speak for Ashley, but I don't think we're looking for a full-fledged traffic study, but
okay.
I dare not use the term lower fidelity, but there's a difference between a traffic analysis and a full-fledged traffic study. I think this board is looking for the bare minimum, which is a traffic analysis that is obviously for that location. I'll let, once staff receives the electronic copy of this and can evaluate that more thoroughly and say yay or nay as to, whether that fits the bill, then I think we can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I can say just, Bill, you articulated kind of what I had in mind, not that we anticipate you doing a full-blown traffic study that somebody's out there, counting cars.
Mm-hmm.
But that we would have something that aligned the uses that are permitted with the average daily trips so that the board can have some understanding of the potential traffic generation that would result from the site. And the tricky part of this for this particular proposed project is that you don't know what's going to be in there. So I would expect to see some kind of cross-section of what is permitted in the industrial district so that we can cover kind of all the bases. Like if you give us a handful of maybe the less traffic-y industrial uses and then the higher end of the industrial uses per traffic, and kind of did some kind of like, random assignment of, 40% of the uses we anticipate are going to be, and I'm just kind of making
Sure.
this up. I think you need to look to other similar projects that are out there and sort of what those end up being and what ends up going into them. But this is along the lines of what I'm looking for.
Okay.
But I think this is pretty easy because it's a daycare. And you just go to the trip generation manual and you pluck daycare. You're gonna need to look at a broader range of uses because we don't know what's gonna go into the project.
Okay.
I think best case scenario, worst case scenario is probably helpful to understand, you know, average trip generation. And then if we had this thing full of high traffic industrial uses, what would that look like? Because we know the potential for either is possible. This is gonna be one of those situations where we don't know what's gonna be in there, but we have to assume that anything that's permitted in the industrial district can occupy the space.
Are you tracking?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Thank you.
So, what do you tell me, please?
The memo gives you a draft decision. My recommendation is to not grant the waivers the way that they've asked them for, because essentially what they've asked you for is to not give you any traffic information at all. I don't think that's appropriate. I think you should offer them I think you should take them up on their offer to meet you halfway, because I think that's what we were looking for. We want something that gives the planning board the ability to assess potential traffic generation. And I think they're gonna have to go a little more in detail than this, just because of the fact that we have to kind of have some spectrum because we don't know what's gonna be in there. But I would say my recommendation to you is to direct the applicant to do that, to work with the planning department on that, and not to grant blanket waivers for no traffic information.
What do others feel on that? Stu?
I'd just like to say that we're talking about Eagleville Road.
Yes.
And Eagleville Road is narrow, winding, and hilly, and it has a fairly considerable amount of truck traffic. Right now, existing conditions in that truck traffic, large trucks, are linked, basically linked to two major construction materials businesses. And so we're talking about a road that is already problematical. And I would actually say that we need a full traffic analysis. Meeting halfway may not be adequate given this particular site. Thank you.
Les?
Other comments?
Yeah.
Sure.
Not too long ago, I was going down, because of the turns, there were two police cars. They're using that for a major crossover, to get from one side of town to the other. And there were emergency vehicles and fire trucks and everything else. And you come around a corner, it's the first time either one of you can see the other one. And you're looking right, they're on the wrong side because they picked that time to pass somebody. There's not room for somebody to really pull off. They've got to go into the opposite lane. So it's kind of different than most of the roads that we have.
And if I can make a point as well. So the history of this particular property where this is being proposed had already went to a comprehensive plan review back in 21 into 22, which does have some outside storage that was already permitted. So the access to that property from Eagleville Road is already pre-existing and has already gone through at least planning board review in that aspect. So this project isn't something new where they're cutting in a new roadway, cutting in new access. So I do want to just make that point for one of the reasons supporting the traffic analysis as discussed.
Sure. So what is the pleasure of the board here in terms of traffic analysis versus full-fledged traffic study? Is there a feeling one way or the other? Stu has
I see side, you see more.
I'm sorry?
Minimal traffic study, what she said.
So the traffic analysis?
Yeah.
Any other feedback or comments?
I'd like to say full traffic study.
I agree with Stu, because the road, because of the safety of the road, you know, it's starting.
Okay.
Anyway.
Janice, do you have a feeling one way or the other?
Like one insurance.
So, full-fledged study? Christmas?
I mean, that's a huge stretch of street right there. I don't know if that's my opinion, that particular stretch of Eagle Road. It's pretty straight, pretty wide.
Straight.
Drives 2,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alan, do you have a feeling?
I think I'm inclined to go without really all at least basic.
Okay. All right. I was going to argue for the analysis, but it is.
If I may, I mean, what the analysis is, Ms. Sweet spoke, I mean, this would include the ranges here as we discussed, with the lower intensity uses for industrial location as well as the high intensity uses for the location. I think also, as Mr. Raposa mentioned, with the straight road there, where this property is along, as well as the fact that it's already a pre-existing access point to and from Eagleville Road that is being used, that a traffic analysis, I think, would be fair. It would give the board enough to review. So that's my position there.
And also looks like we can have a pretty large entry area to the property, so I'd rather keep the trucks off the road. You know, I think they'll have plenty of sidewalks in that piece of property. Being able to go over, I think the shoulder's gonna be substantial.
I just want to make one kind of qualifying comment in what I was saying. I think that it would be fair if, either way, it would be fair to have the applicant looking at what is permitted in the industrial district, obviously dependent on the design of the site and the design of the leasable space for, you know, the tradesman center. There are going to be uses in the use table that are just not going to make sense, that just wouldn't fit inside of that structure, or like just wouldn't accommodate the type of use, and I wouldn't anticipate that they would give us an analysis based on those uses, that their analysis would be based on the uses that would actually lease the space, potentially lease the space that it would be usable for.
Yeah. So is there a sort of interim step that we can take to ensure that the potential uses that are modeled, both in a low intensity and a high intensity sort of spectrum there, are realistic uses?
Yeah.
Right? So nothing against Mr. Akers, you, like the applicant here, you don't come back to us with uses that like just don't cut the mustard.
Right.
Right?
No, I mean, I think that's a very fair question, and I think that burden is on the applicant to provide us with whether it's an analysis or a study, because I think they're dealing with the same potential issue, whether it's one or the other. It's the level of background data and you know, things that they have to do in order to produce either an analysis or a study. But the fundamental issue remains the same, is that we don't know what's going in there. They should provide an analysis or study that essentially says, this is what the space is, these are the reasons why these uses fit, and these are the reasons why we didn't analyze these uses. They have to give you a legitimate argument that you could read through and look at and say, like, okay, I can either get behind that, or this is kind of nonsense. Of course those uses could fit here, and here's why I don't agree with your argument.
Chris?
Sort of splitting that a little bit, I think when the board has an idea of what the potential traffic counts are coming in and out of this site, I mean, it's a 18,000 square foot building, which is not huge from an industrial standpoint. I think once the board is able to look at the potential traffic counts coming in and out, they'd be in a better position to determine whether it meets that full traffic study or whether that information is enough.
Yeah.
Rather than just, because again, it may be more than you think, it may be a lot less, but again, 18,000 square feet is not a huge industrial site.
Yeah.
So
do we need to nail? Okay.
No, go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I'm just like, I'm trying to think order of operations here. Like, and are we putting the chicken before the egg, meaning like, are we putting the traffic analysis or traffic study without a solid understanding of what the potential uses are? Because that could dictate, first to your point, like whether or not you go analysis or full-fledged study.
And, well, the problem is I don't know that you're ever gonna get that answer. Like, you're not gonna get an answer from the applicant before you give them a decision on the actual project as to what's going in there, because they're not gonna know that until they lease the space and they get a tenant. But this is a bit complicated in the sense that they've asked for a combined master and preliminary, which is a decision of the administrative officer and was granted to them on the condition that they provide all the checklist items for both stages of review.
Which calls for a traffic study.
So there is a traffic, I believe it's a traffic analysis in the master, oh no, it's a traffic study. And then it's a traffic plan. Right.
So I really feel we're at traffic study here.
Could we start with the analysis and see what the board wants to do following that?
Board response?
You could do it that way. You could reserve the right to, once they come to you and present the actual application, you could reserve the right.
We're talking about certification of completeness.
I understand, but can't you allow them to be couldn't they allow them to be certified complete without one of the items, but not necessarily granted as a blanket waiver, like you never have to do this? We're gonna let you come in, we're gonna let you present your project to us with an analysis, and then we're gonna decide if we think you need to go get a whole study.
Correct.
That would be my recommendation.
How do folks feel about that?
Wait. As long as we get an option.
With the option on the
You
table.
always have the option to ask for more information.
Okay,
This is
so,
only a checklist, I'm sorry. Yep. Just a checklist, yeah.
so in terms of closing this agenda item out, do we need to take any sort of vote here to continue the matter, or what's procedure with question?
You're going to make a motion to accept the traffic analysis as satisfaction of master plan checklist, item number 51, and preliminary plan checklist, item number 59, reserving the right to request additional traffic study if required.
There we go.
So what would the initial traffic?
Traffic analysis.
So what is that? I'm sorry.
That's
Can you
the
define that?
what we
It's a
talked
lower
about.
fidelity.
Can you define that again, or just a basic?
That's what I kind of described to the applicant, is they need to go and pull trip generation numbers from the manual for the range of uses that would be permitted in this structure, with a rationale as to why they selected the uses that they did, so that the board can make an assessment as to whether that's a reasonable analysis of what would actually be in the structure generating the traffic. And so I can imagine, like I said, a kind of worst case, best case, worst case kind of scenario range of uses and what the traffic generated is, and then they would come to you. That would allow them to move forward. It would bring the application in front of you. You could assess that, discuss the application, and then make a decision as to whether or not you want them to go get a full traffic study.
I guess my issue is, I know the company, so I know like basically how the yards work, what the traffic, so the kind of equipment they use. So for me, it's kind of like a non-issue. You know, a few trucks leave in the morning, they all come home at night, and it's sporadic traffic every day. It's an extra step that I don't think we should even go through. Yeah, that's just because I'm familiar with government.
That's fair. We need to make sure the rest of the board is cool. Okay, so is anyone willing to make the motion that Todd did?
Stated.
Yes, please.
The planning board will accept for master plan checklist item number 51, preliminary plan checklist number 59, the traffic analysis as described in Ms. Sweet's memorandum of February 2, 2026, reserving the right to require additional traffic study information should the board so require.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Dick with the second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay. Unanimous. All right. Yeah, go for it.
We have to certify this by the 8th, February 8th. Will we have that by then, or should we extend the time frame to certify complete?
I think in all honesty, I mean, I'd love to sidebar with my client to see if that's possible by the 8th.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna go one way or the other. You're gonna submit it by the 8th, and we're gonna move forward, or we're gonna certify it incomplete by the 8th because we didn't get anything, or we're gonna agree to an extension of that time clock. And we don't have to decide that now. That does not need to be a board decision.
Okay, is that something that I can follow up with
Yes,
tomorrow?
we just need an agreement from you in writing.
Okay. I appreciate that, because then I can speak to my client.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, so that closes that out. Are you sticking around for the next item?
Yes, sir. I'd like to see this perhaps. Go through myself personally. Been with you guys on this one for,
Let's do item 4A, and then I need to ask for an additional agenda item. So, we'll move forward with agenda item 4A, which is Abigail Estates, which discussion and vote on the return of a bond of $560,000, which upon information and belief was previously reduced to $280,000.
And to clarify, it's not a return, you're not returning any money, there's no money in your coffers that you're returning, it's to release the bond.
Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
Have the as-bills been turned in?
Yes, they have. Streetlights are up, and if I'm not mistaken, streetlights are also lit too.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Concrete boundaries are in.
Yes.
There's nothing that remains on the checklist.
Done.
And the town accepted the road?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
It should have.
Sorry, there's been many meetings, so I'm going back in my head. That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. Traditionally, the planning board has always asked our consulting engineer and/or our DPW director if they have gone out to the site and are satisfied that all of the work that was promised to be done and is covered by the bond has in fact been done. Do we have that now?
You'll recall when streetlight issues were going on, other issues, Abigail, Mr. Rogers previously gave this board multiple memorandums as to the status of the work that had been completed and everything had been concluded.
And the council circumvented us as far as recommendation, so that's fine with me.
So do we have confirmation that these last, like, from someone in the town?
Yeah, so as far as from Rick Rogers, the paving, that was done, right?
Yeah.
The bounds, we received the as-built, we have those, they're on file. And then the streetlights, and the stormwater, yep.
And the
So-
DPW director has
Not on
And
Mr. Rogers, yeah.
copies of the as-bills are supposed to also go to the DPW director.
Which I believe they have, yeah.
It would have been,
Yes.
I'll go along with what's going on tonight, but I'd just like to make the point that it would be better if we had had a memo for tonight's meeting from either the DPW director, it's no longer Mr. Rogers unfortunately, or our consulting engineer, who had gone out to the site recently, but I'll go along with the group.
I think.
But I'd like to go back to our traditional practice.
You're right.
We can ask for a memo from David on this. He can go out.
So you can make a motion to release the bond.
Contingent
upon
receipt.
receipt of-
Yes, I think we should do that.
That's a good idea.
Okay, and I'm in agreement with that.
I'll entertain a motion to release the bond for Abigail Estates Development contingent upon receiving.
One second, please. How long do you think they have to do that? Say that we should probably say he has to do it within a week or two, right?
We just need a time.
Okay.
We don't know when the schedule is.
Okay.
And we might have to also, do you think we also have to rely on the consulting engineer, Nathan, to do?
Oh, I don't-
Nick, just, okay.
Let me amend the motion. So make a motion to release the bond as outlined in agenda item 4A, contingent upon receiving written confirmation that the remaining items have been satisfactorily completed from the DPW director within a reasonable time. Someone want to make it? Okay,
Second.
Adam seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, there we go.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
I will be in touch. Of course.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You earned your stripes on that one. Okay, so I'd like to ask someone on the board to make a motion to add a new agenda item to the discussion. We have to find a date for a joint workshop with the town council coming out of the last council meeting. There was a request for a more substantial, multi-hour,
Just get the mention.
yeah. Would someone like to make that motion so that we can discuss this?
So-
Cheryl and Rosemary.
What's
make this
what's the motion for? Sorry, I amend the agenda to have a discussion on the workshop with town council.
A workshop.
Workshop.
So we have a motion from Cheryl, a second from Rosemary. All those in favor? Okay, let's discuss it. So just, some of us here were at the last town council meeting. There was a request for a workshop to work with the council, walk them through the set of zoning ordinance changes that we had made a positive recommendation to that were before the council. There was a request that the 30 minutes that was allotted for that workshop discussion was not long enough. There was a request for a more substantial workshop so that all folks on the town council can understand in detail what all of the changes were that we had worked through and made a positive recommendation on. So we committed to identifying a couple of date and time options that would work with the board, and then we will forward that to the town clerk to work with the town council to see if any of those dates and times work. Whatever works, we'll all agree on that. The joint workshop will get scheduled and we'll walk through that. That's the request. So the question on the table is, Ed, can you poll the board after this meeting to come up with a couple of dates and times? The ask will be, can we come up with, one or two that might work during the week and maybe one that might work on the weekend to try and afford everyone some flexibility.
Yeah, you can respond quickly as Jeff.
Okay, so, we're gonna come up with a couple of dates for the weekdays, a couple of dates for the weekends, not Sunday, probably.
I would say Saturday.
Saturday, okay, and then the question would be location, do they have a location, or are we trying to?
We would have to
travel?
figure that out.
Saturdays, okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. Everybody good? All right, thank you for that. So let's move on to 4B, approval of 2025 annual report to the town council. We need to talk about this and make a vote to send that through. There was a copy of the report in the handouts. I thought it was, the thanks goes to Todd for penning that.
It's all of us.
Okay, even better.
You can thank everyone.
No, we will thank everyone for that. And I would be remiss if I didn't pause, because I read through that and was just utterly amazed and proud at the amount of work that this body did, that's board and staff, in 2025. I think as we go through things month by month, sort of just can't appreciate the big picture here, but in retrospect, it's quite substantial. So kudos to everyone. So, is there any point about the annual report that anyone wanted to talk through? Are we good?
Good.
Okay. I'll then entertain a motion to accept that annual report and direct staff to send that on to the town council.
Second.
I think I heard Dick there for the second. So Alan with the motion, Dick with the second. All those in favor? All right, great. We'll do that. I'd like to entertain a motion to take out of order item 4D and place that above or put that next in the agenda. So item D is me giving an update on where we're at with comprehensive community plan update planning. That discussion is important to inform the budget discussion. So would someone like to make a motion to move that out of order?
So moved.
All right, Rosemary with the motion, Cheryl with the second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Does everyone have a soft copy or a hard copy of that presentation?
I passed it out today to everyone who came in hard copy for the,
Okay.
I had extras.
Yeah.
Can we get that handed out? We're gonna walk it through in real time here, but
I didn't even know.
Okay, Cheryl.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I need it. We all start having really nice.
ooh, it was, in all fairness, it was only finalized last night, which is why it wasn't handed out.
You know, I didn't bring, I only brought one copy.
It's on the screen.
All right, it's on the screen. Can we put it in the-
You can get hard copies to everybody tomorrow.
All right,
Before you start, Bill gets credit for this. This was his work, his labor,
with input from
minimal.
important input.
Okay.
So we've talked about this for some months, and we really need to start taking steps to initiate the next decennial update of our comprehensive community plan, which is required by law, right? So this presentation aims to level set for the board sort of the background on the last plan, which went through in 2018, and sort of set the stage for what needs to happen next in order to put this work into motion. Coming out of this, some of us have a meeting on Friday morning with the town administrator to brief him, because we will need to eventually get this in front of the town council, because there are steps that we need to partner with them on. We want to make sure that the town administrator is. So in any case, we'll go to the next slide, please. So again, very quickly, state law requires us to update the comprehensive community plan every 10 years. Our current plan expires as of November 4th, 2028. So we are on the clock for this. Not to state the obvious, but there are legal risks by not completing the full update, which is inclusive of full state review and approval by that date, November 4th, 28. From a cost perspective, it's really important, and this is why I wanted to have this discussion before we talk to budget, to be mindful of the cost of doing this and doing this well. We'll get into details here, but the last time this was done, there were a number of consultants that the town used to work together with staff and a comprehensive plan advisory committee to produce this. Now, based on what we have been able to pull together from historical sort of budget data, it looks as if the town spent at least around $25,000 the last time around. Now, there could be other costs that were borne by others that could make that number higher. It could be higher, right? So, however, that was 10 years ago. And I think the more important numbers to focus on is sort of like, what is the reality in terms of what it costs most municipalities to produce a comp plan update nowadays in 2026? So based on some benchmarking of other municipalities, that figure is probably somewhere in the $90,000 to $130,000 range, right? I think that's really important. So we'll get into more detail, but really what we need to think about is the formation of a comprehensive plan advisory committee, developing and executing an RFP to secure the services of a consultant to help facilitate the creation of the plan. And really, none of that's going to be possible until we try to secure some funding in the budgets. So next slide, please. So just a bit more about the repercussions or risks of not adopting an updated plan in time. We're not going to go into detail here, but it's important to note that the comprehensive community plan is absolutely cornerstone to a lot of things that this board and this town needs to do. So by not going through the update and approval process there, we run the risk of being able to rely on portions of that plan to approve or deny a project. There's some expanded commentary there. Thank you to Todd for all of the Rhode Island general law citations. We'll not go through that. So in addition, as the General Assembly attempts to expand where housing shall be located, the town needs a valid comp plan in order to identify where it believes residential growth would fit and should be allowed. Further, the general laws instruct the comprehensive community plan to aid in the interpretation of zoning ordinances and maps. And finally, the comp plan is required before the town may impose any reasonable limitations on the number of building permits or land use approvals issued. Again, Todd has a pretty comprehensive document that goes into a lot of detail here. The net key takeaway, we can't miss this deadline. Right, and we need to impress upon our colleagues elsewhere in the town. Next slide, please. I think everyone knows here, but maybe for our listening or viewing audience on YouTube, what is a comprehensive community plan? Although not cited, this language is pulled directly from the 2018 comp plan. Most importantly, it's a long-range guide to the physical development and preservation of the town. It's intended as a framework for accomplishing whatever the community aspires and intends to do. It helps state goals and objectives and recommended courses of action in the areas of natural and cultural resources, land use, housing services and facilities, open space and recreation, circulation and economic development. When you look at it holistically, the comp plan presents a vision for the future of the community of Tiverton, Rhode Island. It's an advisory policy guide, and it's an agenda for future actions by the town and its citizens. So it's vitally important here, especially when it comes to considering amendments to the town zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and frankly, making any and all policy decisions that might affect land use and development. The comp plan really is the backbone for that. Next slide, please. This is an abbreviated timeline of sort of the major milestones that were undertaken the last time the town went through this process. I will note that it started earlier. There was like a 5-year runway-ish, and we have about just over 2 years to do this, right? Which underscores the need to get moving on this. And make sure that we can secure the services of a really qualified consultant who can help facilitate and drive us on that compressed timeline. So everything started in 2013 with the appointing of a comp plan advisory committee. We'll talk more about that in the next slide. They brought on a consultant. Last time around, it was the Cecil Group. We initiated public inputs and multiple public input sessions that were held to gather feedback. The CPAC then divvied up into 5 working groups. We'll cover that, and went through the whole rewrite and edit process. Again, helped by the Cecil Group there. We then moved into, it was unclear by the data and the documents that I saw. At some point in 2016, we did an initial draft. We sent a draft over to statewide planning for some initial comments that came back. We started tweaking that. We hired another consultant to help with addressing the state comments. We held some more public meetings to gather final input. We submitted to the town council in July of 2017. And then in January to April of 2018, the town council held a series of 5 public hearings on the final draft. Went through final edits, and then in May of 2018, the town submitted to the state for final approval. Got that final approval in November, which is why November 4th is our deadline. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. So back in 2018, this was a 13-member committee that was established by enabling resolution by the town council. That actual old resolution exists on the town website right now. There's a link, you can go check that out. Todd has already taken the proactive step to draft a new update for that. The most important thing about the Comp Plan Committee, the advisory committee, is that it's cross-functional and representative of a spectrum of stakeholders. From the planning board, town council, town administration, and then we want to make sure that we're pulling from requisite boards and commissions across the town. Given the content that is in the comp plan, the last time around we had Conservation Commission, Economic Development, Harbor and Coastal Waters, Open Space. We also included 3 members from the general public, one of those people serving as the CPAC co-chair. That's important. A lot of vested interest by folks in the public. They want to think about getting involved. There's 5 subgroups that were formed by the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. You can see those to the right. That was a move, and I'm speaking from experience. I was part of the group that worked on this. Is that in the plan there's 10 elements that cover the spectrum of components in the plan. Each group was sort of divided up and focused on a grouping by category. It made for an easier time to facilitate meetings, pull folks together, work through edits. Like if you try to boil the ocean with one big group, you'll never get through it. You got to chunk it out, divide and conquer. Next slide, please. From a cost perspective and a consultant perspective, just a wee bit more detail here. So again, the town went out to RFP for a primary consultant. Ed was actually able to find a copy of that RFP document. So we will not start from scratch here. We will have to go back and edit and revisit it, but we're not starting from scratch here. The town only received 2 bids back in the day. That was from the Cecil Group and Mason and his Associates. I don't remember the rationale, but the award went to the Cecil Group. There were additional professional services from those other consultants. Again, unclear on the costs there. The data was a little bit spotty there. To the right side of this slide, you can see how from the planning board budget perspective, you can see how through 2014 through 2018, what the planning board put in its budget to cover costs ranging from consultants to mapping to advertising and printing. Now, again, that was those were costs over a decade ago, right? So as we think about budget in the next agenda item, we need to think bigger than that. Next slide, please. So to wrap this all up and talk about proposed or recommended next steps as we think through this, there's a logical sequence, right? So today we're tackling item number 1 here, which is prepping the planning board and having a conversation. Next, as I mentioned, a subset of us are going to a meeting Friday morning with the town administrator. We'll walk that through, get his additional input and guidance. We will then plan to get in front of the town council. I should say that the target timeframe dates here are aspirational. Would be great. I think we all know how things, just the speed of things work here. So after we get to the town council, we'll be asking the town council to move forward with enabling, I want to say legislation, but that's too strong a word. I forget the word that we used before. A resolution, enabling resolution to create the comprehensive or the community plan advisory committee. And then you need to go recruit for that, right? And that'll take time. In parallel, the town, working with the administrator's office, will need to initiate and get that RFP out and arrive at a decision. And then we appoint the advisory committee, and then we kick the whole thing off. Get organized from the CPAC with the consultant that gets chosen, and then we start public input sessions. I think aspirationally, that all culminates with public input sessions starting up in the May-June timeframe here. We have until November 4th, 28 to get this done. It's really important that the state law gives the state 130 days to approve the final plan, which means we need to have the final plan blessed by the town council and ready to submit by August of 28. So, I know that was a lot. We're compressed for time, given everything we have. We'll make sure that this gets distributed electronically so folks can go through it in a bit more detail. Again, thanks to staff for helping prepare this. Let's pause. Questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, timeline. For press.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's going to underscore the need to bring in a consultant who's strong and can really maybe pick up the slack that, you know, having gone through this process, and I know there are others in the room who were part of this the last go around, it's a slog trying to edit content in groups. It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. So and that's the other thing, each subgroup has a lead, right? And that lead takes the lead of doing all the red lines. Like, it's a lot of work, right? You want it to be thoughtful. You want it to be comprehensive. So, all of that to say, yeah, we gotta get moving. We should have probably moved on this a year ago. But can't do anything. So, any other comments or questions? All right, great. So with that, we will move to the next agenda item, which is approval of the planning board budget for fiscal year 26-27. Do we even have a handout for that?
We got one last month. You carried over the discussion to this month.
Okay. I need to open that. So I remember when we looked at it in January, my concern was that we were not asking, can you go back one slide? Yeah. So, I'm trying to pull up. Was it in January?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's under the budget tab for those, and then.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Do you have the drive?
Yeah, I think so. This is, okay. No. Yeah, can you flip that up? All right, So this was our last. So we budgeted a total of $13,000 for the last fiscal year. That was largely earmarked for professional and technical services for 10 grand, and then advertising costs for 3,000. We had to switch some things up and sort of reallocated some dollars, but the net still was 13,000. We didn't spend all of that last year, but I will say, as a sort of going in, knowing that we are going to need to move on the comp plan, I think from a budget perspective, we ended up spending more on advertising, just given the amount of work that we were doing. So I think we should probably go in with more for that. Maybe at the $5,000 level, because I anticipate that we will continue to have stuff coming out of the zoning review committee that we'll need to continue to go through. So that's potentially a starting point. But for me, it's that professional and technical services line item. I don't know if $10,000 is enough, given some of the benchmarking data that we have for the first year of doing all of the work on the comp plan. That being said, I have no idea what the tolerance of the council is. I mean, we're sort of rock and hard place here, to be quite frank. My sense is probably going in, at least starting at the $5,000 level and seeing where that gets us. I think the other thing, and this we'll talk with the town administrator on Friday on, is what other funding mechanisms might we be able to tap into that the council has access to, which I'm not privy to. Thoughts, reactions from the board?
Are there any resources and grants from the state that comprehensive plan year?
Yeah, so we looked into that. There was this notion of that, like some mysterious grant was tapped into back at the last time. No one could find any paper trail on that. And I think Ashley, when talking with Ashley, your sense was that those sort of grants just don't really exist.
I'm not aware of any grant money available through the state or any other agency of the state for comprehensive plans.
So how do folks feel about going in with a $30,000 budget with $5,000 tied to advertising and $25,000 for professional and technical services, with the understanding that that'll probably go towards the cost of a consultant? Again, we're a little out of order here in terms of sequencing our actions, right? In theory, you'd be able to go out to RFP, align on that, figure out how much it's going to cost, and then budget to that. We're out of sync, which is why I think we can go in with a certain amount of money and then have the expectation with the town administrator that we're working to try and find dollars to round that out to cover consulting costs for the comp plan. Okay. So we need to put forth the budget to the town, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to walk out of here with
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Some, a number, yeah.
Yeah, so again, my starting point, open to discussion, 30,000 total, 5,000 for advertising, 25,000 for technical and professional services.
So moved.
Well,
Is that at least what we need? I mean, if you're gonna start someplace, start with all your needs.
yeah, I mean, from other line, there's no other line items. I mean, honestly, knowing that it's gonna cost 90 to 130, I mean, I might lead with 50,000 for professional and technical services, right? You know what I mean? And then you gotta cover for 2 years, right? So you think about maybe 50 grand a year. for that?
And we said that.
It's in here. Okay. Well, yeah, well, that's one of the things to present too, is that this is not an annual thing, this is a 10-year update. So, again, with the council, it's a mandatory. It's, we don't have a choice, and maybe they can work with us on finding other funding sources. So, I would suggest, 30 is not going to do it. So I would suggest going closer to 50.
Yeah.
And you take it from there, and then we can always deny it.
Yep.
Just wear a hard hat.
Come again?
Just wear a hard hat.
Just wear a hard hat. So, all right.
I just want to offer you one piece of maybe context that might help. The term update is a complete misnomer that really doesn't do justice to what's required. And I've had this conversation with statewide planning directly about the term update, and the response I got back was, oh, that's a holdover from when we used to do this differently, and you used to be able to do what was considered an update, and they changed that framework. It's a 20-year plan. It's a 10-year, basically every 10 years you are going in, you're pulling all new data, you're looking at all your policies, you're looking at everything. It's actually sometimes harder to do this as like the update version, because you have to update so much that it's almost easier to just sort of restart and pull what you can keep, with an understanding that update does not mean update. And I just offer you that in conversation with the council, should someone say it's an update, like, well, how can it possibly cost that much money? It's a holdover term that does not describe this process adequately.
I think that's a fantastic point. I'm literally editing the deck in real time to swap that out. That's really great. So, all right, revise. 55,000 on the table. 5,000 for advertising, 50 for technical and professional services. I will entertain a motion to put forth a...
Do you want a memorandum to go with that?
Yes,
Cover
please.
letter
Yes, please.
explaining why.
Yes. And I think from a submission perspective, like, I want to get through the conversation with the town administrator on Friday first before we submit that. But we should have a memo. That explains, and we can make reference to the slides.
Yep.
So I will entertain a motion to put forth a budget for the planning board for fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $55,000, with $5,000 of that earmarked for advertising. I don't know if the budget numbers, but, and then $50,000 for professional and technical services.
Make that motion, but is it possible to also add, would you have the ability to amend it after your meeting on Friday? If the discussion was, no, you need to increase that by just another 25.
Yeah.
Take a bigger chunk.
That's a great point. We got two conversations. Okay, so I'd like to amend that motion to also add in a caveat that since we're not going to submit it to the town until after the meeting with the town administrator on Friday, that we have some flexibility to amend that number based on the conversation Friday.
Up or down, is there a limit? It's kind of like chicken and donuts. Up.
We can put those parameters in. What's comfortable? Maybe plus 20 either way, plus or minus.
50%, just considering that big number that we know is going to be out there, you have to have the ability to be flexible.
Okay, so plus or minus 50%?
Right, or we can make it where the board is giving you the opportunity to amend it based on that conversation. Whatever the amount is going to be. So giving you that authority to amend it, rather than try to guess what that amount might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's one way or the other, right? Like, we can put a cap, 50%, or everyone feels comfortable, like, that we amend as required. I mean, does anyone?
Chairman's discretion.
At the chairman's discretion.
Yeah, that window is being forward, we think we're running and then to make sure we want and they explain what that month is for.
Yes, I think we'll be able to explain Janice to a certain point, you know, using some of the content from these slides to help illustrate the array of third-party consultants that were used. Like that's what that line item would be, you know, targeted.
What we need.
Yes, duly noted, and not shortchanging. Yeah, for sure.
And like in the negative.
Say that again. I've been through that dance before, so, okay. But the motion on the table is to put forth a budget of $55,000, $5,000 for advertising, $50,000 for professional and technical services, with giving the chairperson leeway to amend that based on the input from the town administrator coming out of the meeting that we're having with him on Friday.
Thank you much.
Cheryl with the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Rosemary. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? All right, unanimous. All right, great, thank you. Oh, we're getting close here, guys. All right, yes. Yes, do we need to make a motion to carry that to March? Say it. All right, we're gonna carry, yeah, can we make a motion to carry agenda item 4E to the March meeting, which is the recommendation to the town council on amendments to Appendix A zoning ordinance outlined in items E1, E2, E3.
So moved.
Rosemary with, I heard Rosemary with the motion, Alan with the second. All those in favor? Okay, that is moved. Ed, planning office status update sheet.
So, we're gonna put this on the website, it's ready to go.
Okay.
We just finished it today, so.
Okay.
I'll get copies out to everybody tomorrow, hard copies if you need it, and I'll email it out to the board.
Okay.
And then it will also be on the website. And it's going out to DPW director, fire marshal, school administrator, town administrator, town council, and everybody. So everyone's gonna have it. We're gonna update it pretty regularly, I would say, as, you know, as often as we can. And applications change, the status change pretty frequently.
Okay.
Just to kind of give you some ideas of where we're at. So obviously tonight with Vital, that's gonna be updated.
Yep.
Once Sue gets back to us on that. Just a couple other things to kind of point out. Street legal was approved, so the final decision was approved, and that was done on January 14th, and it was recorded on January 15th. So that project is done with. They're going for their building permits now. Couple other just quick notes on here. East Coast Construction will obviously get updated, as you know, tonight. Just a couple other items, some minor subdivisions that have been put through. So I think I mentioned that Baja's cat rescue plans were recorded on January 5th, 2026. So that's all set. That's done with, as well as the Lombardi subdivision that was recorded on January 5th, 2026, as well as the De Silva minor subdivision that was recorded on January 5th, 2026 as well. Those applications are been over and done with. I'll leave them up on the chart for now.
Yep.
Then we'll remove them as, you know, other projects come on in. So that's where we're at right now.
Great, thank you for the work on that, Ed. When do you think that'll be up on the website?
Hopefully tomorrow.
Okay.
With the help of our tax assessor.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 4G, general planning board correspondence. We just want to acknowledge receipt of non-project specific correspondence. We have an email dated January 28th, 26th from Catherine Peruzzi in support of low and moderate income housing resolution to be considered by the town council. Thank you for that. Moving on to 4H. Approval of planning board minutes of January 7th, 2026. Does anyone have any substantive comments?
I have non-minutia items.
All right.
And one of them is very important in mine, on page 2, on that Moses Garden. On the third from the bottom, it starts with Mr. Hardy asked the applicant to possibly look at previous payments. At the end, I asked if the engineer would please sign the plans, and I also asked if this parcel was in the Stapoco group, STAECO. Applicant replied no. That's important for the watershed and the projects over there, the posterity. And
The applicant was in the
Stapoco.
Stapoco, if they were in the Stapoco group. And the, and the engineer signed the plans. Then, on page 5, something doesn't add up here. There were 8 of us here, and it only, somebody.
Adam left.
Okay, put Adam left so that it,
Okay.
in there so that everything adds up. Yeah.
What day was the meeting on? 6th or 7th? 6th.
The 6th. Did I put the 7th?
This is a cover sheet, yeah, our agenda sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and, just put him as missing, just so it adds up for when we're researching 20 years. That was like in 4 places. Oh, yeah, and give Ed take some credit here that you distributed the handouts on item page 6, item D. Mr. Rotella distributed, handed out. And at the bottom of the page, the next regular meeting. That's it. That's all I have.
Does anyone else have any substantive changes? Okay, I will entertain a motion to accept and approve the planning board minutes for the January 6th, 2026 meeting as amended via discussion here this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Good. Rosemary with the motion and with the second. All those in favor? There we go. All right. Agenda item 4I, discussion on Tiverton Water District's hydraulic models, consistency with nationwide standards, and an update on the Tiverton Water District January 20th, 2026 meeting discussion. Okay, so let me start this. So, in full disclosure, I was unable, just to remind everyone, I'm the liaison to this joint water district group. I was unable to make the meeting on January 20th, 2026, so I was unable to bring to the table the concerns that Stu, you raised about some of the consistency there. I'm extremely hesitant to really discuss much of this without any of our water districts in place, not in place, but here this evening. I'm going to reiterate again the recommendation that we move to, and I know we're making positive strides in this direction. Mr. Spencer, you're gonna have to pick up this ball and run with it. That we move to a much more highly collaborative, in-person model with the water districts board. Stu, they're valid concerns, but I think trying to piecemeal the discussion with half the parties here, half the parties not here, whether it's in our house during a planning board meeting or at the joint water district meeting, I just feel like we all need to come together and really it's staff working with the district, with the water districts, ensuring that the points raised by the board can get through to that. That is the that is the only, or in my opinion at least, the most efficient way to work through and reestablish this collaboration. I apologize I was not able to get to that meeting. I was stuck in Canada. So, Steve, do you have a...
Yes, the meeting only took 18 minutes, so you didn't miss much. Am I right, Sue? Did you go to it?
No, I went to it.
Yes. Apparently, it, for some reason, it was very short. Well, I had heard the same thing. So you didn't miss much. I don't disagree with anything Bill says. I sent him several memos with concerns I have, particularly about the Lisa Goyer memo that was handed out during the December meeting. Not everybody got it because only a few copies were handed out by Carl Destrams of Stonebridge Fire District. This is a memo from a hydraulic engineer by the name of Lisa Goyer, who works for PAR Corporation. PAR Corporation is also representing the Vital project. But Lisa also, we also got a memo from Lisa just today, which indicates that they are well into the which suggests that that a hydraulic model may have actually been constructed for the Stonebridge Fire District. This is a computerized simulation of the entire infrastructure of the water delivery system, including the amount of water that's produced and the quality of the water that's produced. I have two concerns about this. Is it in fact really consistent with the industry-wide, well-recognized standard put together by the American Water Works Association called, and included in which I have here, Manual 52. I'm not really sure about that because Lisa Goyer uses language that somewhat qualifies that in her memos. The second issue I really have is, have they included the water treatment facility, which has been called into question by North Tiverton Fire District and by their superintendent, Robert Leroux, who made a presentation before town council just about a year ago and was very disparaging in his comments about the capabilities and the condition of the water treatment facility. Reading between the lines, it doesn't look like they've included that in the hydraulic model, which they should do to be consistent with the American Water Works Association standard. So none of us can say whether what they've done is good or bad. We need a hydraulic engineer to help us, and we do have a contract with Weston and Sampson to take a look at the hydraulic model produced or maybe close to being produced by Stonebridge, as well as the hydraulic model for North Tiverton, to make sure that those models are really adequate to answer the questions that the planning board continues to ask. Can we handle the kind of large-scale developments that are coming before us? Do we have the water infrastructure to handle that? If we start approving projects without really knowing that answer, then I think the town has some legal liability for doing that. So I would like to ask, to make a long story short, that and I don't know if the contract with Weston and Sampson covers this, but it would be terrific to have their hydraulic engineer come before us, and then at the same time, we could invite both of the water authorities to come in, and anybody else who's interested, and kind of have a workshop. We could actually call it a workshop, But I would like to have an opportunity to actually ask questions of Weston and Sampson, because they are our consulting engineers. You don't have any other consulting engineer, and none of us are engineers. So we need an independent third party to look over everybody's shoulder and to say, no, Stu, you're wrong. This thing is fine. You know, this model is going to work. It's going to answer all of your questions, or not.
All valid.
So I'm making a formal request that we arrange to have the hydraulic engineer here from Weston and Sampson, who's been working on this for over a year now. I know, at least over a year.
I'm leery to go too deep on this, but there has been discussion at those joint water, and again, do not have partners from Stonebridge or North Tiverton here. I do not want to speak for them. They're not here to represent their side of everything. I want to be mindful of that. We have started making motion in the direction to be able to get the data required for Weston and Sampson to execute that statement of work that the town has contracted them, right? We have to get the staff in the water districts talking together at the same time. If we want to get to the point of a workshop with the board too, that's great, but I don't advise we go that way until staff in the water districts actually knock out some of the blocking and tackling on this thing first, so that there can be a substantive discussion that satisfies the board. Right, like we've talked about.
But in the meantime, we're being asked to approve projects.
I don't disagree with you, Stu. That's been the case for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That doesn't sort of negate the situation here. I think, if anything, it underscores the criticality of making progress on this front. So, I know we've talked about this before, but can we, Chris, you're going to get thrown into the deep end on this. I do think it's worthwhile to have a four-way discussion between our staff, 2 separate water districts, and Weston and Sampson to try and come together and align on the source data that will be required for Weston and Sampson to execute their study. There has been concerns raised by both districts about sort of putting forth, yes. But we have had conversations with them about how to work around that by getting at the source data that inform the model. They not need the model. If we have the source data, that's probably what Weston and Sampson could vouch. So my ask again is for that four-way conversation to take place as quickly as possible, and then be able to come back and on the results.
And I'll just make the suggestion that ideally, we have the model. That really should be the goal. That's what this project was designed on. That was what we set out very early on in this. That is the easiest and best kind of results you're going to get out of the study. And Weston and Sampson is a professional firm that deals with these models on a regular basis and has the cautions necessary to keep the data safe. So I understand, but I think that's an issue that we can get through.
Absolutely.
If we could sit down and talk about it, I would say alternatively, we can accept the data instead of the whole model, but I really think that if we want to get the most out of this, we should initiate the conversation and try to come to some common ground where they can feel comfortable giving us the model as opposed to trying the other way first.
Agree.
And taking that as the plan B.
Agree. That all starts with getting a four-way conversation together. Like, nothing, can't pass go, can't clutch. So, all right?
Somebody has to review the model, not only for Stonebridge, but hopefully also for North Tiverton. I don't know if that's covered in the contract with Weston and Sampson, but somebody needs to look at that and say, these models are fine. These models will give you really accurate information about the impact of any particular project coming before the planning board. That's really what we need. And that's what was contracted for, at least my understanding of it. And I know we've had those conversations with North Tiverton, and they didn't have any problem with sharing their model with us at all. Suddenly, we seem to have a problem with Stonebridge sharing their model with us, which makes me a little suspicious. So yes, I completely agree with Ashley. We need more than data. We need to see the model itself. Not the planning board, but somebody who knows what a valid model really is and has the confidentiality not to, spill information.
Okay. Staff's going to take the action, connect with the water districts and Weston and Sampson. I think we need an update on progress at the March meeting. All right, moving on. Cheryl, update from the Tiverton zoning ordinance revision committee.
Can we move this to when we discuss the other zoning issues?
Yeah.
Considering the time.
Totally fine. Alan, how goes the Tiverton Harbor Commission on the liaison
Easy,
ship?
finally easy during, because of the holiday, they moved the event and I was out of town.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
they moved it as a bad day.
All right. With that, Rosemary, it's 10:18.
Motion to adjourn at 10:18.
Privilege motion. Thank you, everyone, for sticking it out. I appreciate it.